After returning from a successful 3-week business trip to Seattle where I closed the biggest deal of my marketing career, I find my childhood bedroom completely emptied and redecorated in pink frills. A handwritten note from my mother sits on the dresser. "Imogene, if you want to stay here, the basement has been prepared for you. Your sister Amanda needs this room for her art studio now that she's moved back home. We thought you'd understand since you're always traveling anyway. Love, Mom and Dad." My suitcase drops from my trembling hands. The airplane wheels had touched down at Portland International Airport just 4 hours earlier, and I had driven home with my heart full of pride and excitement. The Microsoft contract I'd secured represented the culmination of months of preparation, late-night strategy sessions and presentations that stretched my professional abilities to their absolute limit. At 28 years old, I had just delivered the largest client acquisition in my company's 15-year history. The celebration dinner with the Seattle team still felt fresh in my memory, along with the congratulatory emails flooding my phone throughout the flight home. Walking up the familiar pathway to the 2-story colonial house where I'd grown up, I noticed Amanda's silver Honda Civic parked in what used to be my designated spot beside the garage. A flutter of confusion passed through my chest, but I pushed it aside, assuming she was just visiting with the kids for Sunday dinner. My parents had always made a big production of family gatherings, especially when one of us achieved something worth celebrating. The front door opened with the same familiar creak it had made since my childhood, and the scent of my mother's lavender potpourri drifted through the entryway. Everything appeared normal until I climbed the carpeted staircase toward my bedroom, my rolling luggage bumping against each step with a rhythmic thud that echoed through the hallway. The door to my room stood slightly ajar, revealing glimpses of unfamiliar colors through the gap. My stomach tightened with an inexplicable sense of dread as I pushed the door open wider. The space I had inhabited for 18 years of my life, the sanctuary I had returned to during college breaks and brief visits home, had been transformed into something completely unrecognizable. Gone were my navy blue walls adorned with framed certificates from my marketing degree and professional achievements. Instead, the walls had been painted a shocking shade of bubblegum pink, decorated with inspirational quotes written in flowing cursive script. Where my mahogany desk had stood beneath the window, an easel now displayed a half-finished abstract painting, splattered with bold strokes of orange and purple. Art supplies covered every available surface from watercolor palettes to expensive brush sets, still bearing their price tags. My queen-sized bed with its crisp white comforter had been replaced by a daybed draped in flowing pink and gold fabrics, surrounded by decorative pillows, embroidered with motivational phrases like, "Dream big" and "Create your reality." The familiar burgundy curtains that had provided privacy during late-night study sessions were gone, replaced by sheer pink panels that filtered the afternoon sunlight into a rosy glow. But it was the note that shattered my composure completely. Written on my mother's monogrammed stationery in her characteristic neat handwriting, the message felt like a physical blow to my chest. The casual tone, the assumption that I would simply accept this displacement, the complete disregard for my attachment to this space, all combined to create a wave of betrayal so intense that my knees nearly buckled. This was the room where I had studied for the SATs that earned me a full scholarship to Portland State University. These walls had witnessed my first heartbreak, my college acceptance celebrations, and countless phone calls with friends who had helped shape the woman I'd become. Every corner held memories that stretched back to childhood tea parties with stuffed animals and teenage dreams of the future that was now my reality. The successful business trip that should have marked the pinnacle of my professional achievements suddenly felt hollow and meaningless. Standing in this transformed space, staring at evidence of my complete erasure from my family's priorities, I understood that my absence had been seen not as a professional necessity, but as an opportunity for redistribution of resources and space. The sound of children's laughter echoing from downstairs draws me away from the devastating note, and I discover Amanda has moved back home with her 2 young children, 7-year-old Tyler and 5-year-old Madison, following her messy divorce from Brandon. She's positioned herself as the victim who needs family support, while secretly gloating about claiming my room as her new artistic sanctuary. Descending the staircase with legs that feel disconnected from my body, I follow the sounds of animated conversation toward the kitchen. The familiar warmth of my childhood home now feels foreign and unwelcoming, as if I'm trespassing in a space that no longer recognizes my belonging. Amanda stands at the kitchen island, her auburn hair cascading over her shoulders in the effortless waves that have always made me slightly envious. She's wearing an expensive-looking bohemian dress that flows around her petite frame, paired with jewelry that catches the light from the pendant lamps hanging above the granite countertop. Her artistic aesthetic has always been carefully cultivated, from her vintage leather satchels to the paint-stained scarves she wears like badges of creative authenticity. Tyler sits at the breakfast bar, his dark hair falling across his forehead as he concentrates on a coloring book featuring elaborate dinosaur scenes. His tongue pokes out slightly in concentration, a habit that reminds me so much of Amanda at that age. Madison perches on a booster seat beside him, her blonde curls bouncing as she chatters excitedly about the new playroom that Grandma and Grandpa have created just for her and her brother. Imogene. My mother's voice carries the forced brightness she reserves for awkward family situations. She emerges from the pantry carrying an armful of snack packages, her graying hair pulled back in the neat bun she's worn for as long as I can remember. "We weren't expecting you back until tomorrow evening. How was Seattle? Did everything go well with the presentation?" The casual nature of her greeting feels like another slap across my already stinging cheek. No acknowledgement of the dramatic room transformation, no explanation for the upheaval that has erased my presence from this house, just pleasantries about my business trip, as if nothing significant has occurred during my absence. The trip went better than expected. I manage my voice sounding strangely formal in this familiar kitchen. I secured the contract, the biggest deal in company history, actually. Amanda looks up from the art supply catalog she's been browsing, and for just a moment I catch a flash of something that looks remarkably like satisfaction in her green eyes. "Oh, that's wonderful, Jeannie," she says, using the childhood nickname that now sounds condescending coming from her lips. "I'm so proud of your success. It must be amazing to have such a demanding career that keeps you traveling so much." The emphasis on demanding and traveling so much doesn't escape my attention. She's laying the groundwork for the narrative that has already been constructed during my absence, the story that justifies her appropriation of my space and my displacement to the basement. Tyler looks up from his coloring book, his brown eyes bright with innocent curiosity. "Aunt Jeannie, did you bring us presents from your trip? Mom said you were working really hard and might not have time for shopping." The guilt manipulation begins immediately, wrapped in the sweet voice of a 7-year-old who has clearly been coached about my priorities and allegiances. Amanda smooths his hair with maternal tenderness while shooting me a look that dares me to disappoint her children. "I brought back some local chocolates and small gifts." I reply carefully, not wanting to take out my frustration on innocent children who are merely repeating what they've been told about their absent aunt. "That's so thoughtful," Amanda coos, but there's an undercurrent of something else in her tone. "The kids have been so excited about their new playroom. Would you like to see what Mom and Dad have done? It's right next to my new studio space." She emphasizes my new studio space with unmistakable ownership, and I realize that not only has she claimed my bedroom, but she's also expanded into the adjoining spare room that my parents had always maintained as a guest space for visiting relatives. Madison slides down from her booster seat and grabs my hand with sticky fingers. "Come see Aunt Jeannie. We have a princess castle and a reading corner and everything." Her enthusiasm is genuine and infectious, but it's also a painful reminder of how thoroughly my absence has been filled by other priorities. Following the children upstairs feels like walking toward my own execution, but refusing would create a scene that would somehow become my fault rather than a natural response to discovering my complete displacement from this household. The spare room has indeed been transformed into an elaborate playroom that clearly cost thousands of dollars. Colorful foam mats cover the hardwood floor, creating safe spaces for the children to play. An elaborate wooden castle dominates one corner, complete with drawbridge and turrets, while the opposite wall features built-in shelving, filled with books, educational toys, and art supplies, organized in clear containers. And here's my new creative space. Amanda announces, pushing open the door to what was once my childhood sanctuary. The room looks even more shocking in person than it had from the doorway. Every trace of my existence has been methodically erased and replaced with Amanda's artistic vision. Professional quality easels stand at different angles throughout the room, each supporting canvases in various stages of completion. A drafting table occupies the space where my desk had provided workspace for homework and college applications. But it's the casual confidence in Amanda's demeanor that truly stuns me. She moves through the space like she's been planning this takeover for months, pointing out the north-facing window that provides perfect natural lighting for her work, and the custom storage solutions that organize her extensive collection of art supplies. I've already completed 3 commissioned pieces since moving back home, she says, gesturing toward canvases that feature abstract interpretations of coastal landscapes. Having proper studio space makes such a difference in creative productivity. I'm finally able to focus on my art without distractions. The implication hangs heavy in the air. My room, my space, my childhood sanctuary has become her distraction-free creative haven, and I'm expected to celebrate this development as if it's a natural progression rather than a calculated displacement. Where exactly am I supposed to sleep when I'm home? I ask, my voice carefully controlled, despite the rage building behind my sternum. Amanda's expression shifts into what I recognize as her practiced look of wounded innocence. "Oh, Jeannie, didn't you read Mom's note? They've prepared the basement for you. It's actually quite cozy once you get used to it. And honestly, with your travel schedule, you're hardly ever here anyway. It seemed like such a waste to keep this beautiful room empty when I really needed a proper workspace." The casual dismissal of my connection to this house, combined with the suggestion that my professional travel somehow negates my right to maintain a space in my childhood home, crystallizes everything I need to understand about this situation. My father appears at the top of the basement stairs with a forced smile, eager to show me the space they've prepared for my accommodation. What I discover in the concrete-walled area next to the water heater shatters any remaining illusion that this arrangement was made with my comfort or dignity in mind. "Let me show you what we've set up down here." Dad says, his voice carrying the enthusiastic tone he typically reserves for home improvement projects he's particularly proud of. At 55, he still moves with the confident stride of someone who believes his practical solutions can fix any family complication. The basement stairs creak under our combined weight as we descend into the dimly lit space below the main house. The familiar musty smell that I remember from childhood games of hide and seek now takes on an ominous quality, mixing dampness with the metallic scent of old pipes and stored holiday decorations. The main basement area stretches across most of the house's footprint, with concrete walls painted a dingy beige color that does nothing to hide the water stains near the foundation. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows that make everything look slightly greenish and institutional. Cardboard boxes labeled with fading marker ink create maze-like pathways between different storage areas, containing everything from Christmas ornaments to outdated electronics that my parents can never quite bring themselves to discard. "Here we are," Dad announces, gesturing grandly toward what can only generously be described as a corner of the storage area. A camping cot has been unfolded next to the water heater, its aluminum frame supporting a thin mattress that barely qualifies as more comfortable than sleeping on the concrete floor directly. The cot is positioned between towering stacks of plastic storage containers filled with Amanda's belongings, from her marriage items she clearly had no room for in her new upstairs artistic sanctuary. Draped across the cot are quilts that I recognize from my grandmother's house, their once beautiful patterns now faded and marked with the distinctive smell of mothballs and long-term storage. These are not the good quilts that my mother displays in the guest bedroom upstairs, but rather the ones that have been relegated to emergency use or situations where quality doesn't matter. "We cleared out this whole section just for you," Mom adds, emerging from behind a stack of Christmas decoration boxes. She's wearing the bright smile she uses when she's trying to convince someone that an obviously problematic situation is actually perfectly reasonable. "And look, we even brought down this little table from the garage sale pile." The table in question is a wobbly card table with a folding metal frame, the kind typically used for temporary outdoor events or basement poker games. Someone has placed a small lamp on its surface, the kind with a flexible neck that typically illuminates workbenches or craft projects. The lamp's cord snakes across the concrete floor toward an outlet that's partially hidden behind the water heater. "Where exactly am I supposed to put my clothes?" I ask, looking around the space for anything resembling storage or privacy. Dad points proudly toward a tension rod that has been installed between two exposed support posts. "We hung up this closet rod, and there are some empty boxes you can use for your other things. It's quite functional once you organize it properly." The closet rod supports exactly 4 wire hangers, the cheap kind that come from dry cleaners, and the empty boxes he's referring to are clearly repurposed shipping containers that still bear Amazon logos and packing tape residue. But the most shocking revelation comes when I ask about bathroom facilities. "Well, the basement bathroom has been having some plumbing issues for the past few months," Mom explains with the same cheerful tone she might use to discuss a minor inconvenience, like a squeaky door. "The toilet keeps backing up and we haven't had a chance to call the plumber yet, but we put this bucket here just in case you need it during the night." She indicates a 5-gallon plastic bucket sitting beside the cot, the kind typically used for household cleaning or construction projects. A roll of toilet paper sits on top of it like some kind of absurd bathroom amenity. "You expect me to use a bucket?" The words come out louder than I intended, echoing off the concrete walls and mixing with the hum of the water heater's motor. "It's just temporary," Dad says quickly, his enthusiasm finally showing some cracks around the edges. "We'll get the plumber out here soon and everything will be back to normal. Besides, the upstairs bathroom is always available during the day." The upstairs bathroom that I would now have to share with Amanda Tyler Madison and my parents. The bathroom where I would have to carry all my toiletries up and down stairs every time I needed to shower or get ready for work. The bathroom where my presence would be a constant intrusion on Amanda's new domestic arrangement. "This is completely unacceptable," I state, my voice echoing in the concrete space. Mom's expression shifts into the martyred look she perfects whenever anyone questions her decisions. "Imogene, we've done the best we could with the space available. Amanda needed a proper room for her artwork and the children needed a safe place to play. You're always telling us how much you love staying in hotels during your business trips, so we thought you'd be fine with a more minimalist arrangement." The twisted logic takes my breath away. My professional travel, which I undertake to build the career that has been supporting this family financially, has somehow been reframed as evidence that I prefer temporary accommodations over my own bedroom. "Besides," Dad adds, "you contribute so much to helping us with expenses that we wanted to make sure Amanda and the kids had everything they needed to get back on their feet. This arrangement works out perfectly for everyone." The casual mention of my financial contributions sends a chill through my chest. For 3 years, I've been sending money to help my parents with various expenses from Dad's medical bills to home maintenance costs that seem to constantly arise. The contributions that were supposed to be temporary assistance during a difficult period have somehow become expected income that now subsidizes Amanda's artistic pursuits and childcare needs. Standing in this basement corner surrounded by storage boxes and the constant hum of mechanical systems, I finally understand the complete picture of how my family views my role in their lives. I'm not a daughter who deserves a space in her childhood home. I'm a financial resource who should be grateful for whatever accommodation can be arranged around more important priorities. The water heater kicks on with a loud whooshing sound, and I realize that my nights in this space would be accompanied by the constant noise of mechanical systems cycling on and off. The dampness in the air will probably aggravate the allergies I've had since childhood, and the complete lack of privacy means that every phone call, every moment of rest, every attempt to decompress from work stress would happen in full view and hearing of anyone who needed to access the storage areas or utilities. While gathering my belongings from what used to be my room, I overhear a phone conversation between my parents discussing how my monthly financial contributions will continue covering Amanda's children's private school tuition and art supplies. A devastating review of my bank statements reveals that my supposed temporary help has actually totaled over $100,000 across 3 years. Climbing back upstairs from the basement feels like emerging from a tomb, and I head directly toward Amanda's new studio to collect my personal items that surely must be stored somewhere in the transformation. But as I approach the partially open door, the sound of my mother's voice on the phone stops me in my tracks. No, don't worry about the tuition payment. Mom is saying, her voice carrying the confident tone she uses when discussing financial matters that are well under control. Imogene's monthly contribution covers Tyler and Madison's school fees completely, plus Amanda's art supply expenses. We've been able to manage everything beautifully since she started helping out. I press myself against the hallway wall, my heart hammering as the implications of what I'm hearing begin to crystallize in my mind. $3,000 every month, regular as clockwork. Mom continues. It's been such a blessing, especially with Amanda's divorce and the children needing stability. Imogene has been so generous about helping family during this difficult transition. $3,000 every month. For how long, I try to calculate quickly in my head, but the numbers are too staggering to process while standing in a hallway eavesdropping on a conversation that's reframing my entire financial relationship with my family. Amanda's artwork is really taking off too. Mom continues with pride evident in her voice. She sold 2 pieces last month, and with the proper studio space, she's been so much more productive. The investment in art supplies is really paying dividends. Investment in art supplies. Using my money. My monthly contributions that were supposed to be temporary assistance during Dad's medical crisis have somehow become a permanent funding source for Amanda's artistic career and her children's private education. I retreat to my car in the driveway, my hands shaking as I pull up my banking app on my phone. The mobile screen seems too small to contain the enormity of what I'm about to discover, but I need to see the numbers clearly before I can process the full scope of this financial relationship. Scrolling back through 3 years of automatic payments, the pattern becomes undeniably clear. Every month without fail, $3,000 has transferred from my checking account to my parents' joint account. What started as emergency assistance during Dad's surgery and recovery period had continued long after he returned to work, long after the medical bills were paid, long after any reasonable definition of temporary help had expired. 36 months, $3,000 each month. $108,000 in direct transfers, plus additional amounts for various emergencies and special occasions that had seemed reasonable at the time, but now take on a more sinister significance. I start adding up the extras, Amanda's divorce attorney fees that I covered because family helps family during legal crises. The down payment on Amanda's Honda Civic because reliable transportation is essential for single mothers. Tyler and Madison's summer camp tuition because children shouldn't suffer for their parents' divorce. Christmas and birthday gifts for the children that I purchased, but Amanda gave, taking credit for the generosity that my money made possible. The total is approaching $130,000 money that has flowed from my career success into supporting a lifestyle for Amanda and her children that my parents could never have afforded on their retirement income alone. But perhaps most painful is scrolling through my text messages and finding the careful manipulation that has kept this money flowing without my full awareness of its scope and purpose. Messages from Mom about Amanda struggling to afford art supplies for her therapy that resulted in $500 transfers. Updates about Tyler needing tutoring that somehow cost $800 per month. Casual mentions of Madison's dance lessons that required new equipment and costumes that I automatically funded. Each individual request had seemed reasonable, even generous in the context of helping my sister rebuild her life after divorce. But viewed as a comprehensive pattern, I can see how deliberately I've been positioned as the family's financial solution to every problem and aspiration that Amanda's artistic income couldn't cover. The phone rings in my hand, and Mom's number appears on the screen. For a moment, I consider letting it go to voicemail, but I need to understand exactly how deep this financial manipulation goes. Imogene, honey, where did you go? Amanda was hoping to show you some of her latest paintings before dinner. I needed some air, I reply carefully. The basement setup was a bit overwhelming. Oh, you'll get used to it, Mom says dismissively. Listen, I wanted to mention that Amanda's been looking at this wonderful art workshop in Portland next month. It's a bit expensive, but it could really help her establish connections in the professional art community. I know money is probably tight after your Seattle trip, but I thought maybe you could help with the registration fee. The casual assumption that I'll continue funding Amanda's aspirations, delivered within hours of discovering that I've been displaced to a basement corner with a bucket for a bathroom, crystallizes everything I need to understand about my role in this family. How much I ask? Only $1,500, and it includes materials and networking opportunities. It could really be the breakthrough Amanda needs to become financially independent with her art. Financially independent. After 3 years and more than $100,000 of my money supporting her artistic dreams, Amanda is still positioned as someone working toward independence, while I'm expected to continue funding that journey indefinitely. I end the call without committing to anything and sit in my car staring at my childhood home through the windshield. The house that I've been helping to maintain the mortgage, that my contributions have been supporting the lifestyle that my career success has been subsidizing for a family that just displaced me to a basement corner because my sister needed creative space. For the first time in 3 years, I'm seeing this relationship clearly, and the view is absolutely devastating. Instead of spending the night in the basement, I drive 40 minutes to my hidden sanctuary in Ocean View Heights, a stunning 2-bedroom penthouse apartment overlooking the Pacific that I purchased under an LLC 2 years ago. My family knows nothing about this investment property that has become my weekend retreat and profitable Airbnb rental. The drive through the winding coastal roads gives me time to process the emotional earthquake that has just shattered my understanding of my family relationships. As I leave the suburbs behind and approach the rugged Oregon coastline, the scent of salt air through my partially open windows begins to ease some of the tension that has been building in my chest since walking into that transformed bedroom. Ocean View Heights represents everything my family home no longer offers: peace, respect, and space that belongs entirely to me. I discovered this luxury development 2 years ago while attending a marketing conference in the coastal resort town, and something about the dramatic clifftop location spoke to possibilities I hadn't even realized I was craving. The apartment building itself is a masterpiece of Pacific Northwest architecture, with cedar and stone exteriors that blend seamlessly into the natural landscape. Floor-to-ceiling windows maximize the stunning ocean views, while private balconies extend the living space into the fresh coastal air. When the unit became available, I saw it not just as an investment opportunity, but as insurance against exactly the kind of family crisis I'm now facing. Using an LLC to purchase the property ensured complete privacy from my family's financial curiosity, and structuring it as a short-term rental investment provided both income and personal access whenever I needed escape from the pressures of family obligations and demanding career responsibilities. My key card opens the lobby door with a soft beep, and I'm immediately enveloped by the sophisticated atmosphere that money can buy when it's spent on your own priorities rather than other people's emergencies. The lobby features polished concrete floors, contemporary artwork from local artists, and comfortable seating areas where residents can enjoy morning coffee while watching sunrise over the Pacific. The elevator rises smoothly to the 8th floor, and stepping into my apartment feels like entering a completely different universe from the basement corner I've just been offered as accommodation. The open floor plan flows seamlessly from the modern kitchen, with its granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, through the dining area with its custom table that seats 6, into the living room where floor-to-ceiling windows frame an unobstructed view of the ocean stretching to the horizon. The master bedroom features a king-sized bed with luxury linens that I selected myself, a walk-in closet with custom organizational systems, and an ensuite bathroom with a soaking tub positioned to take advantage of the ocean view. The second bedroom serves as my home office, equipped with the executive desk ergonomic chair and all the technology necessary to work remotely when I need space to think clearly. But it's the private balcony that truly sets this space apart from any other place I've ever lived. Stepping outside, I'm surrounded by panoramic views of the Pacific Ocean, with nothing between my 8th floor vantage point and the endless horizon. The sound of waves crashing against the rocks far below provides a constant rhythm that seems to slow my heart rate and clear my mind of the chaos I've left behind. This evening, the sunset paints the sky in brilliant oranges and purples colors that seem impossibly vibrant after the dingy beige walls and harsh, fluorescent lighting of my parents' basement. A pod of whales migrate south in the distance, their occasional breaches creating tiny splashes visible even from this height. Container ships move slowly along the horizon, carrying cargo to and from ports up and down the west coast. Inside the apartment, my refrigerator is stocked with foods I actually enjoy, rather than whatever Mom happens to be preparing for family dinners, centered around Amanda's preferences and the children's limited palates. My coffee maker produces exactly the strength and flavor I prefer, and my sound system plays music that reflects my tastes rather than competing with cartoon shows and art project chaos. For 2 years, this space has been my secret retreat, available whenever work stress or family obligations became overwhelming. Weekend mornings often find me here with coffee and industry journals, planning strategy for client presentations, while waves crash rhythmically below my balcony. The Airbnb income during periods when I'm traveling for work has nearly covered the mortgage payments, making this both a smart investment and personal sanctuary. The contrast between this environment and the basement corner I've just been offered crystallizes exactly how my family views my worth and comfort. Here, every detail reflects consideration for my preferences, needs, and dignity. There, I was offered a camping cot next to a water heater and told to be grateful for the accommodation. My laptop opens on the dining table, and I begin researching something I've never seriously considered before: what it would actually cost to maintain my current lifestyle without sending $3,000 every month to subsidize my family's choices. The numbers are startling in their clarity. Without those monthly transfers, plus the additional emergencies and special requests that have become routine expectations, I could afford a significant upgrade to my coastal retreat. The monthly savings would cover a larger apartment, or renovations to this space, or simply building the kind of substantial savings account that provides security and options rather than constantly flowing toward other people's priorities. For the first time in 3 years, I'm calculating my financial possibilities based on my own needs and aspirations, rather than my family's expectations and emergencies. The freedom inherent in those numbers feels simultaneously exhilarating and terrifying. As darkness settles over the ocean and the lighthouse on the nearby point begins its nightly rotation, I realize that I have choices my family has never acknowledged, and options they've never allowed me to consider. This apartment represents independence. They know nothing about financial resources. They can't access and a vision of life that prioritizes my own well-being rather than their constantly expanding needs. Tomorrow I'll need to make some decisions about how to respond to this basement ultimatum and the casual financial exploitation I've discovered. But tonight, surrounded by space and beauty that I've created for myself, I can think clearly about what I actually want my life to look like going forward. The ocean continues its eternal rhythm outside my windows, indifferent to family dramas and financial manipulation, reminding me that there are bigger perspectives available when you step away from other people's chaos and create space for your own priorities. From my coastal apartment, I begin methodically severing every financial connection that has bound me to my family's irresponsible spending habits. Each phone call to cancel automatic payments brings a surge of liberation as I reclaim control over my finances for the first time in 3 years. The morning sun streaming through my floor-to-ceiling windows illuminates my laptop screen as I open multiple browser tabs to access various financial accounts and service providers. My coffee steams beside me, perfectly brewed to my exact preferences, while classical music plays softly from speakers that never have to compete with children's cartoons or Amanda's dramatic phone conversations. The first call goes to my bank's customer service line, where I navigate through automated menus to reach a human representative who can help me cancel the automatic transfer that has been bleeding $3,000 from my account every month for 36 consecutive months. I need to cancel a recurring transfer to an external account. I explained to Jennifer, the customer service representative, whose professional demeanor immediately puts me at ease. Certainly I can help you with that. Can you provide me with the account details and the transfer amount? As I read off the routing numbers and account information, the reality of what I'm doing settles into my chest like a weight lifting, rather than settling. For 3 years, this money has disappeared from my account as automatically as my rent payment or car insurance. But unlike those expenses, this transfer has been supporting people who just offered me a camping cot next to their water heater. The transfer has been successfully canceled, Jennifer confirms. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Actually, yes. I also need to remove myself as an authorized user from several credit card accounts. The credit cards represent another layer of financial manipulation that I'm only now understanding fully. Over the past 2 years, my parents suggested adding me as an authorized user on their accounts for emergency purposes and to help improve their credit scores. What I didn't realize was that Amanda had been given access to these cards for her various artistic and child-related expenses. Each credit card company requires a separate phone call, but the process becomes easier as I develop a script for explaining my situation without revealing the personal details of family dysfunction. I need to remove myself as an authorized user from this account immediately. Becomes my standard opening line, followed by verification of my identity and confirmation that I understand all implications of the removal. The Chase card that Amanda has been using for art supplies canceled. The Bank of America card that covered Tyler and Madison's private school uniforms and supplies canceled. The Capital One card that funded Amanda's grocery shopping and children's extracurricular activities canceled. With each cancellation, I feel layers of obligation and manipulation peeling away from my shoulders, like removing a heavy coat that I hadn't realized was weighing me down. But the most significant call involves my parents' car insurance policy. 2 years ago, when Dad's premium increased due to a minor fender bender, I agreed to add their vehicles to my policy to take advantage of my excellent driving record and multi-vehicle discount. The arrangement was supposed to save them money while providing me with a slight reduction in my own premium. Progressive Insurance, this is Marcus. How can I help you today? I need to remove 2 vehicles from my policy immediately. Marcus walks me through the process of identifying the vehicles and confirming my authority to make changes to the policy. When he mentions that removing the cars will leave their owners without coverage, I feel a moment of panic before remembering that their lack of insurance is a consequence they'll need to manage themselves. The vehicles have been removed from your policy effective immediately, Marcus confirms. The owners will need to secure their own coverage to remain legal for driving. The health insurance supplemental policy that I've been paying to bridge the gap between my parents' Medicare coverage and their actual medical expenses requires a call to Humana, where I discover that I'm listed as the policyholder, despite never having requested that level of financial responsibility. I need to cancel this policy entirely. I tell the representative, my voice growing stronger with each boundary I establish. May I ask the reason for cancellation? The beneficiaries are no longer my financial responsibility. That phrase feels revolutionary coming out of my mouth. For 3 years, I've operated under the assumption that family members automatically become financial responsibilities when they experience difficulties. But sitting in my beautiful apartment, looking out at ocean waves that have been rolling onto this coast for millions of years without caring about human drama, I realize that financial responsibility is actually a choice rather than an obligation. The final call involves removing my name from my parents' bank accounts, where I've been listed as a secondary account holder since college. Originally intended to help me assist with their finances during Dad's medical crisis, this access has evolved into another mechanism for guilt-based financial requests. Wells Fargo, how may I direct your call? I need to remove my name from joint bank accounts. This conversation requires the most documentation and verification, but eventually I'm successfully removed from all accounts that could provide my family with any claim on my financial resources or any mechanism for accessing my money without explicit permission. By mid-afternoon, I've systematically severed every automatic financial connection that has tied my earning power to my family's spending habits. The silence of my phone after hours of customer service calls and account modifications feels profound and peaceful. Walking out onto my balcony with a fresh cup of coffee, I calculate the immediate impact of these changes. $3,000 monthly that will no longer disappear from my checking account. Approximately $800 monthly in insurance premiums that I'll no longer be paying for other people's cars and medical expenses. Credit card payments that could easily total $1,500 monthly during Amanda's particularly expensive artistic phases. More than $5,000 monthly that will now remain in my control rather than flowing automatically toward people who just offered me basement accommodation with a bucket for a bathroom. The financial liberation feels almost as dramatic as the physical space of this apartment, compared to that concrete corner next to the water heater. For the first time in 3 years, my money will serve my priorities, fund my goals, and build my security rather than subsidizing other people's poor choices and artistic aspirations. As the afternoon light begins to shift toward evening, painting the ocean in deeper shades of blue and green, I realize that I've just fundamentally altered the power dynamic in my family relationships. Without automatic access to my financial resources, they'll need to have actual conversations about money, rather than simply expecting it to appear whenever they need it. The independence feels terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure, like stepping off a cliff and discovering that I've actually grown wings during the fall. Within 72 hours, my phone explodes with increasingly desperate calls and texts as my family discovers the extent of their financial dependence on my contributions. Their first mortgage payment bounces Amanda's credit cards get declined at expensive stores, and the reality of their situation becomes undeniably clear. Tuesday morning brings the first wave of panic in the form of a voicemail from Dad, his usually confident voice cracking with uncertainty and disbelief. Imogene, honey, I think there might be some kind of banking error. Our mortgage payment was rejected yesterday, and when I called the bank, they said the automatic transfer from your account didn't go through. Can you check on your end and make sure everything is set up correctly? We've never had this problem before, and I'm sure it's just some kind of technical glitch. The assumption that this must be an error rather than an intentional change reveals how completely they've integrated my financial support into their basic operating assumptions. For 3 years, my money has flowed so reliably that they've stopped thinking of it as assistance and started treating it as guaranteed income. I don't return the call immediately, instead spending the morning walking along the coastal trail that winds beneath my apartment building. The physical movement through salt air and stunning scenery helps me maintain perspective on what's happening rather than getting drawn back into their crisis management mode. By Wednesday afternoon, the messages have escalated in both frequency and desperation. Mom's text arrives while I'm reviewing quarterly reports for my upcoming performance evaluation. Imogene, please call me immediately. There seems to be a problem with all our accounts, and I can't reach anyone at the bank who can explain what's happening. The electric company is threatening disconnection, and Amanda's card was declined at the grocery store yesterday. The image of Amanda being embarrassed at a grocery store checkout creates a moment of sympathy that I have to actively resist. For 3 years, I've been conditioned to respond immediately to any sign of family financial distress, jumping into problem-solving mode without questioning whether these crises are actually my responsibility to resolve. Amanda's first direct contact comes through a series of text messages that arrive rapid-fire while I'm in a client meeting. "Jeannie, what the hell is going on with the credit cards? I tried to buy art supplies for Tyler's school project and got declined 3 times. This is so embarrassing. The woman at Michael's looked at me like I was some kind of deadbeat. Mom said there's a problem with the bank accounts too. Are you having financial trouble? Why didn't you tell us you couldn't help anymore?" The assumption that any interruption in my financial support must be due to problems on my end rather than decisions I've made demonstrates how thoroughly they've avoided taking responsibility for their own financial planning. Thursday brings voicemails from both parents speaking over each other in a conference call that captures their growing panic as the implications of my financial withdrawal become clear. "Imogene, this is getting serious." Dad says, his voice tight with stress I haven't heard since his medical crisis 3 years ago. "The bank is saying that all the automatic payments from your account have been canceled, but that can't be right because you would have discussed something that major with us first." Mom's voice overlaps with his, "Honey, we really need to talk about whatever is going on. Tyler's tuition payment for next semester is due next week, and without the usual transfer, we don't have enough in our account to cover it." Amanda is beside herself with worry about the children having to change schools. The manipulation embedded in that message is masterful. Rather than acknowledging that they've been dependent on my money for their grandson's private education, they frame the situation as my responsibility to prevent disruption to innocent children's lives. Friday afternoon, Amanda calls directly, and her voice carries a combination of fury and desperation that I recognize from our childhood arguments. "Seriously, Jeannie, what kind of game are you playing here? Do you have any idea how humiliating it was to have my card declined at the art store while Tyler was standing right there? He asked me why we couldn't buy the supplies for his project, and I had to tell him that Aunt Jeannie might be having money problems." The fact that she told Tyler I was having financial difficulties rather than explaining that their family needed to manage their own expenses reveals everything about how she's chosen to frame this situation. And now Mom is crying about the mortgage payment, and Dad is talking about refinancing the house to cover expenses. Is this really what you want, to destroy the family's financial stability over some kind of petty disagreement about bedroom arrangements? The reframing is breathtaking in its audacity. My decision to stop subsidizing their lifestyle has become a petty disagreement about bedroom arrangements rather than a natural response to being displaced to a basement corner, while my money funds Amanda's artistic career and her children's private education. The family group text thread becomes a constant stream of increasingly desperate messages. Dad called 3 different banks about emergency loans. Interest rates are terrible right now. Mom, Amanda had to put back half her groceries yesterday. This is affecting the children's nutrition. Amanda, Tyler asked me why we're suddenly poor. What am I supposed to tell him? Mom, Imogene, please just call us. We can work this out if we talk like adults. Dad, whatever we did wrong, we can fix it. Family is more important than pride. Amanda, I'm willing to apologize for whatever upset you if you'll just restore the financial arrangements until we can figure out a long-term solution. Each message reveals their fundamental misunderstanding of what's happening. They're treating this as a temporary tantrum that can be resolved through negotiation and apologies, rather than recognizing that I've made a permanent decision to prioritize my own financial security over their convenience and Amanda's artistic aspirations. Saturday evening, as I sit on my balcony watching container ships move slowly across the horizon, my phone rings with a call from Mom. Her voice is thick with tears, and I can hear Dad and Amanda talking urgently in the background. Imogene, we're all here together trying to understand what went wrong. We've been over and over our conversations from last weekend, and we genuinely can't figure out what we did that was so terrible that you'd want to punish us financially. The word punish crystallizes their perspective perfectly. They see my decision to keep my own money as punishment rather than self-preservation financial attack rather than natural boundary setting. We know the basement isn't ideal, she continues, but it was the best solution we could come up with for everyone's needs. If you want to discuss other arrangements, we're completely open to that conversation. The offer to discuss other arrangements comes only after their financial dependence on me has become a crisis that threatens their mortgage, Amanda's lifestyle, and the children's private education. 3 days ago, the basement corner was presented as a fait accompli that I should accept gratefully. Now suddenly everything is negotiable. As weekend darkness settles over the ocean, I realize that this flood of panic and manipulation is exactly what I expected once I cut off their financial access. For 3 years, my money has been the foundation that allowed them to avoid taking responsibility for their own choices and planning for their own financial security. Now that foundation has been removed and they're discovering how precarious their situation actually is without my subsidies to cushion their poor financial management and Amanda's expensive artistic lifestyle. The desperation in their voices might have motivated me to restore the payments 3 days ago, but sitting in my beautiful apartment surrounded by space and dignity that I've created for myself, I realize that their crisis is the natural consequence of choices they made without consulting me or considering my needs. Their panic is not my emergency to solve. Amanda escalates her tactics by using her children as emotional weapons, coaching 7-year-old Tyler to call me crying about how Grandma and Grandpa are really sad while orchestrating heartbreaking manipulation through Madison. She also launches a social media campaign designed to paint me as the villain who abandoned innocent children during their time of need. Sunday morning's peace is shattered by my phone ringing at 7:30 displaying Tyler's contact photo that Amanda must have used to call from his child-friendly tablet. His small voice, thick with tears and confusion, cuts through my coastal serenity like a knife through silk. "Aunt Jeannie, it's Tyler. Are you really mad at us forever?" The words hit my chest with physical force, and I can hear Amanda coaching him quietly in the background, her voice a whispered stream of prompts and encouragement for maximum emotional impact. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm not mad at you at all." I manage trying to keep my voice steady while rage builds toward my sister for using her son as an emotional manipulation tool. "But Mommy said you don't want to help our family anymore, and Grandma keeps crying about the house. Madison drew you a picture, but Mommy said we can't send it because you might throw it away." Each carefully crafted sentence reveals Amanda's coaching, designed to maximize guilt, while positioning herself and the children as innocent victims of my inexplicable cruelty. The mention of Madison's drawing combined with the suggestion that I would discard a gift from my 5-year-old niece demonstrates a level of calculated emotional manipulation that takes my breath away. "Tyler, honey, sometimes adults need to make difficult decisions about money and living arrangements. That doesn't mean anyone stops loving you or Madison. But why can't you just live in the basement like Mommy said I cleaned it up for you yesterday? I moved 3 whole boxes so there's more room for your stuff." The image of my 7-year-old nephew trying to make a concrete corner more livable for his displaced aunt, believing that his efforts might solve this adult conflict, fills me with simultaneous heartbreak and fury at Amanda for creating this situation. Amanda's voice becomes more audible in the background. "Ask her if she misses us, baby. Ask her when she's coming home. Aunt Jeannie, do you miss us? "When are you coming home? Grandpa said maybe you found a new family that you like better than us." The manipulation is so transparent and vicious that I have to bite my lip to keep from responding with the anger that Amanda actually deserves. Instead, I focus on reassuring Tyler while recognizing that this conversation is being orchestrated entirely for Amanda's benefit. "I miss you and Madison very much, Tyler. This situation is between the adults in the family, and it has nothing to do with how much I love you kids." "Mommy wants to talk to you now," Tyler says, and I hear Amanda taking the phone before I can object. "I hope you're proud of yourself." Amanda hisses, her voice low and venomous. "He cried himself to sleep last night asking what he did wrong to make Aunt Jeannie stop loving him. Madison keeps asking when you're coming to her ballet recital next month. What am I supposed to tell them when their aunt suddenly decides family doesn't matter anymore? You could start by taking responsibility for your own financial planning instead of using your children as weapons." I reply, my voice colder than I've ever heard it sound. Weapons. They're innocent children who love their aunt and can't understand why she's suddenly abandoned them over some ridiculous bedroom drama. You're punishing kids for adult decisions they had nothing to do with. The conversation ends abruptly when Amanda hangs up, but within hours my social media feeds begin filling with carefully crafted posts designed to generate sympathy for her situation while painting me as heartlessly selfish. Her Facebook status update appears first when family members decide their comfort is more important than children's stability and education. Heartbroken doesn't even begin to cover watching my kids ask why someone they trusted suddenly doesn't care about their future. Some people show their true colors when asked to make even small sacrifices for family. The post is accompanied by a photo of Tyler and Madison looking sad in their pajamas, a picture that was clearly taken specifically for this social media manipulation campaign. Within an hour, comments from relatives and family friends begin pouring in expressing shock and disappointment at my apparent selfishness. Amanda's Instagram story features a video of Madison holding up a crayon drawing that shows our family with one figure crossed out in black marker. Madison's sweet 5-year-old voice narrates, "This is our family, but Aunt Jeannie doesn't want to be in our family anymore, so I had to cross her out." The calculated cruelty of coaching a kindergartner to create and explain content designed to manipulate me through public shame demonstrates a level of emotional abuse that I'm only now recognizing clearly. Tuesday brings a series of text messages from extended family members who have seen Amanda's social media campaign. Aunt Carol, "Imogene honey, what's going on? Amanda posted that you've cut off all contact with the family over some argument about living arrangements." Cousin Janet, "I'm seeing some concerning things on Facebook about family drama. Is everything okay with you? Uncle Robert, your sister seems really upset about something involving money in the kids' school. Maybe you should call your parents and work this out." Each message reveals how effectively Amanda has controlled the narrative, presenting herself as a struggling single mother whose children are suffering because their selfish aunt has withdrawn support over trivial disagreements about sleeping arrangements. But the most devastating manipulation comes Wednesday evening when Madison calls from Amanda's phone, her tiny voice carefully coached to deliver maximum emotional impact. "Aunt Jeannie, it's Madison. Mommy said I should call and tell you about my ballet recital. It's next Friday and I'm going to be a swan. I practiced my dance moves for you, but Mommy said you might be too busy with your new life to come watch me." The careful phrasing reveals Amanda's coaching "too busy with your new life" plants the idea that I've replaced my family with other priorities, while "I practice my dance moves for you" emphasizes the personal connection and effort that I'm supposedly disregarding. "I would love to see your dance, sweetheart," I tell her, knowing that Amanda is listening to every word. "Really, Mommy said you don't want to see our family anymore because we made you sad about the basement. But Tyler and I said sorry for the basement being yucky. We put air freshener down there and everything." The idea of my young niece and nephew trying to make a concrete storage area more appealing through air freshener, believing that they are somehow responsible for adult conflicts about money and respect, breaks my heart while simultaneously enraging me at Amanda's willingness to traumatize her own children for financial leverage. Madison, honey, you and Tyler didn't do anything wrong. This is about adult stuff that has nothing to do with you kids. But Mommy said if you loved us, you would help us stay in our house and keep going to our school with our friends. She said sometimes people stop loving their family when they get successful. The sophistication of this manipulation delivered through a 5-year-old's innocent voice reveals how extensively Amanda has planned this emotional warfare campaign. She's teaching her children that love is conditional on financial support, that family relationships are transactional arrangements, and that my professional success somehow threatens their security. I love you and Tyler more than anything in the whole world. I tell her, fighting back tears. That will never ever change no matter what happens with adult decisions about money. After Madison hangs up, I sit on my balcony watching fog roll in from the ocean, obscuring the horizon and creating a gray barrier between my peaceful apartment and the vast world beyond. The manipulation I'm experiencing would be devastating if I didn't have this sanctuary to return to this space where I can process the emotional abuse without being immediately drawn back into crisis management mode. Amanda's willingness to traumatize her own children in service of financial manipulation demonstrates exactly why cutting off automatic payments was necessary. Someone capable of coaching kindergartners to deliver guilt-laden messages about family love and financial support is someone whose access to my resources needs to be permanently restricted regardless of the short-term emotional cost of establishing those boundaries. The fog continues rolling inland as evening darkness settles over the coast, and I realize that this emotional manipulation campaign is likely to continue escalating until Amanda either accepts that her financial independence is her own responsibility or finds other family members willing to subsidize her artistic career and her children's private education. Either way, my money will no longer be available to fund lifestyle choices made by people who would use children as weapons in financial warfare. While my family implodes, I receive life-changing news about my Seattle business deal. The Microsoft contract becomes the largest in company history, resulting in my promotion to Regional Director of the West Coast Division, with a salary increase from $85,000 to $140,000 annually, plus substantial bonuses and stock options. Thursday morning arrives with an email that changes everything about my professional trajectory. The subject line reads, "Urgent executive meeting request from Jennifer Walsh, the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships, who personally recruited me to the company 4 years ago." My heart rate spikes with momentary panic, wondering if somehow my family's financial crisis has affected my workplace reputation, before I remember that my professional achievements exist in a completely separate universe from their manipulation and drama. The meeting takes place in the executive conference room on the 20th floor with floor-to-ceiling windows that offer stunning views of downtown Portland and the Cascade Mountains in the distance. Jennifer sits at the head of the polished mahogany table, accompanied by David Chen, our Chief Executive Officer, and Sarah Martinez, the Director of Human Resources. The formal setting suggests either devastating news or extraordinary opportunity. "Imogene, please sit down," Jennifer says with a smile that immediately eases my anxiety. "We have some remarkable news about the Seattle contract you secured last month." David leans forward, his expression carrying the enthusiasm I recognize from company-wide meetings, where he announces record-breaking quarterly results. Microsoft has formally approved the partnership agreement you negotiated, and the initial contract value has exceeded our most optimistic projections. Sarah slides a folder across the table, and my hands shake slightly as I open it to reveal financial projections that seem too large to process immediately. The 3-year partnership agreement totals $12.7 million, with expansion opportunities that could double that figure if performance benchmarks are met consistently. This represents the largest single client acquisition in our company's 15-year history. Jennifer explains, her voice carrying genuine pride and excitement. Your presentation in Seattle, combined with the relationship-building strategies you developed during the 3-week negotiation period, has positioned us as Microsoft's primary marketing partner for their entire Pacific Northwest expansion initiative. The irony is almost overwhelming. While my family was displacing me to a basement corner and preparing to use my financial contributions to fund Amanda's art supplies and Tyler's private school tuition, I was closing the deal that would transform my professional status and earning potential permanently. David opens his laptop and projects quarterly performance data onto the wall-mounted screen. Based on these results, we're restructuring the entire West Coast division, and we'd like you to serve as regional director, overseeing all client relationships from San Francisco to Seattle. Regional director. The promotion I've been working toward for 3 years delivered as a direct result of professional achievements that my family dismisses as traveling for work that keeps me away from more important priorities, like accommodating Amanda's artistic space requirements. The position comes with a base salary increase to $140,000 annually. Sarah explains, sliding another document across the table, plus performance bonuses that could add $20,000 to $30,000 per year, stock options vesting over 5 years, and a comprehensive benefits package that includes executive-level health insurance and retirement contributions. I try to calculate the financial implications while maintaining professional composure. The salary increase alone exceeds the amount I've been sending to my family monthly. Combined with bonuses and stock options, my earning potential has effectively doubled, just as I've discovered how extensively my previous income was subsidizing other people's poor financial decisions. There's also a relocation allowance if you'd prefer to move closer to Seattle for the increased client interface this position will require, Jennifer adds. We understand that travel demands will be significant, and we want to ensure your personal circumstances support professional excellence. Personal circumstances that support professional excellence. My family has never framed my career in those terms, instead treating my work travel as an inconvenience that justifies displacing me from my childhood bedroom and relegating me to basement accommodation when I return home with major professional victories. I'm honored and excited to accept this opportunity. I reply, my voice carrying confidence that feels new and powerful. When would you like me to start in the new role, sir? Immediately, David says with a grin. Your first assignment is developing expansion strategies for the Portland and San Francisco markets building on the Seattle success model. You'll have a team of 8 direct reports and complete autonomy over West Coast client development. The meeting concludes with congratulations, scheduling discussions for next week's strategic planning sessions, and David's personal invitation to join the executive leadership team's quarterly retreat in Napa Valley next month. Walking out of that conference room, I feel like a completely different person than the woman who discovered a basement cot and a note about Amanda's artistic space requirements just 5 days ago. My new corner office overlooks downtown Portland, with windows that stretch from floor to ceiling and provide natural light that transforms throughout the day as the sun moves across the sky. The executive assistant who will support my new responsibilities introduces herself and begins reviewing calendar management systems that will coordinate my expanded travel schedule and client relationship responsibilities. But the most satisfying moment comes when I call the Oceanfront Property Management Company from my new office, discussing the possibility of converting my apartment lease into a permanent residence rather than maintaining it as a rental property investment. With my new salary bonuses and stock options, I can easily afford the coastal lifestyle full-time while building substantial savings for future investments and opportunities. Based on your credit score and income verification, we can definitely facilitate a purchase conversion, the property manager explains. The oceanfront market has been appreciating rapidly, so this would be an excellent investment decision from both lifestyle and financial perspectives. That evening, I celebrate alone on my apartment balcony with champagne that costs more than Amanda typically spends on art supplies in a week. The sunset paints the Pacific in brilliant oranges and reds, while container ships move slowly along the horizon, carrying goods between international markets that depend on exactly the kind of strategic partnerships I've just been promoted to oversee. My phone sits silent beside me, free from the constant stream of guilt-laden messages and financial emergency requests that had dominated every previous career celebration. For the first time in 3 years, my professional success belongs entirely to me, rather than becoming another source of family financial expectations. A pod of gray whales migrates south in the distance, following ancient patterns that have guided their movements for thousands of years without regard for human drama or manipulation. Their steady progress along the coastline reminds me that some things operate according to natural laws and personal determination, rather than other people's emergencies and emotional blackmail. The promotion, the salary increase, the stock options, and the executive leadership responsibilities all represent recognition of abilities and achievements that my family has never acknowledged or celebrated. While they were planning Amanda's artistic studio space and calculating how to optimize my financial contributions, I was building the career foundation that would make their manipulation irrelevant and their basement accommodation completely unnecessary. As darkness settles over the ocean and the lights of fishing boats begin twinkling in the distance, I realize that my professional worth has always existed independently of my family's financial needs. The difference is that now I finally have the personal space and emotional clarity to recognize that worth and build my life around it, rather than around other people's constantly expanding expectations and emergencies. The champagne tastes like freedom, and the ocean breeze carries the salt scent of infinite possibilities that extend far beyond basement corners and bucket bathrooms. The situation deteriorates rapidly as my parents face foreclosure. Within 30 days, Amanda's children may need to change schools, and my father reveals he gambled away their emergency savings at the local casino, convinced that my monthly contributions made them financially secure forever. Monday morning brings a certified letter that changes the entire trajectory of my family's crisis. The envelope, addressed to my parents but forwarded to my office address, bears the official seal of Columbia River Mortgage Company, and even before opening it, I understand that their financial situation has moved beyond temporary inconvenience into genuine catastrophe. The foreclosure notice states clearly that my parents have 30 days to bring their mortgage payments current or face legal proceedings to reclaim the property. 2 missed payments plus late fees and legal notification costs total $8,047 that must be paid immediately to prevent loss of the home where I grew up. What makes this particularly devastating is the timeline. The first missed payment occurred exactly when I canceled my automatic transfers, meaning they had no backup plan, no emergency savings, no financial cushion beyond my monthly contributions. For 3 years, they've been operating under the assumption that my money would always be available to bridge any gaps in their budget planning. Amanda's crisis unfolds simultaneously when Tyler's private school sends a formal notice that tuition payments are 3 months behind, totaling $11,600, including late penalties. The letter explains that Tyler and Madison will be withdrawn from enrollment at the end of the current week unless full payment is received immediately. This is a complete disaster. Mom tells me during a phone call that oscillates between desperation and blame. Tyler has been at that school since kindergarten. All his friends are there, and Madison just started making friends in her class. How are we supposed to explain to them that they have to leave because of a family conflict over sleeping arrangements? The reframing continues to be breathtaking. Their complete financial dependence on my income has somehow become a family conflict over sleeping arrangements, rather than the natural consequence of 3 years of irresponsible budgeting and planning based on my unlimited financial availability. But the most shocking revelation comes during a tearful confession call from Dad on Tuesday evening, his voice thick with shame and desperation that I've never heard before in 30 years of knowing him as a competent and reliable father figure. "Imogene, I need to tell you something that's going to make you very disappointed in me." He begins, and I can hear Mom crying softly in the background. About 6 weeks ago, I made a terrible decision that I thought would help secure our financial future. The story unfolds slowly with long pauses, where Dad struggles to find words for confessing choices that have destroyed their financial stability. 2 months ago, feeling confident about their economic security because of my reliable monthly contributions, he decided to invest their emergency savings fund by gambling at the Spirit Mountain Casino. I'd been watching poker tournaments on television, and it seemed like smart strategy rather than random chance. He explains, his voice hollow with self-recrimination. I thought if I could multiply our emergency fund, we'd have real financial security instead of always worrying about unexpected expenses. The initial success encouraged bigger risks. Dad's first night at the casino resulted in winning $800 money that seemed to validate his strategic approach and analytical skills. Rather than recognizing this as beginner's luck, he interpreted it as confirmation that poker was a viable investment strategy for someone with his mathematical background and careful observation abilities. I went back the next weekend and won another $600, he continues. It felt like I'd discovered a reliable way to build our nest egg, especially since we knew your monthly contributions were covering all our regular expenses. My monthly contributions, the foundation of financial security that enabled gambling away emergency savings because my income seemed guaranteed and permanent. Over 6 weeks, Dad lost $18,300. The entire emergency fund that my parents had built over 15 years of careful saving, plus additional money borrowed against their home equity line of credit, all disappeared into slot machines and poker tables because my financial contributions created an illusion of security that made gambling seem reasonable rather than catastrophic. I kept thinking the next hand would turn everything around. He admits, his voice breaking completely. I'd seen other players win thousands in single nights, and I convinced myself that with just a little more patience and strategy, I could recover everything and come out ahead. The classic gambler's fallacy, enabled by the assumption that my money would always be available to cover their essential expenses, while he pursued get-rich-quick schemes with their actual savings. When did you realize you'd lost it all? I ask, though I'm not sure I want to hear the answer. Last Friday, when the mortgage payment bounced and I went to transfer money from our emergency account to cover it. The account balance was $47.32. $47. After 15 years of careful saving and 3 years of my financial contributions, their emergency preparedness had been reduced to less than $50 because my reliable income had made gambling away their actual savings seem reasonable and safe. Wednesday brings another devastating revelation when Amanda calls in complete panic about her own financial situation, which extends far beyond just the children's school tuition. Jeannie, I need you to know that this isn't just about Tyler and Madison's school. She says, her voice carrying a desperation that cuts through her usual manipulation tactics. I haven't been able to make my car payment in 2 months, and the bank is talking about repossession. The divorce settlement only covers half of my actual living expenses, and I've been depending on the credit cards you were paying to bridge the gap. The credit cards that I canceled last week, leaving Amanda without access to the financial cushion that had been subsidizing her entire post-divorce lifestyle. I've applied for jobs, but nothing in the art field pays enough to cover daycare for 2 kids, plus rent and car payments. She continues, I was counting on having time to build up my art business while the kids got older and I could work more hours. A business plan that depended entirely on my permanent financial support without ever consulting me about the sustainability or my willingness to fund her artistic career development indefinitely. Thursday's phone call from Mom reveals the complete scope of their financial collapse. The electricity company wants $300 immediately, or they're shutting off power on Friday. The water bill is 2 months behind, and our car insurance was canceled because the automatic payment from your account didn't go through. Basic utilities, insurance, transportation, housing, and children's education. Every aspect of their lifestyle had become dependent on my income, while they maintained the fiction that they were financially responsible adults who just needed temporary assistance during difficult transitions. We've never been in a situation this serious. Mom admits, her voice small and frightened. We always had your contributions as backup, so we never built up our own emergency fund beyond what happened at the casino. They never built their own emergency fund. For 3 years, they treated my money as their emergency fund while spending their actual savings on luxuries, indulgences, and ultimately gambling, because my income provided security that made risks seem affordable. Friday evening finds me sitting on my oceanfront balcony watching storm clouds gather on the horizon while processing phone calls that have revealed the complete financial devastation that my family has created for themselves. Foreclosure school, expulsion, utility, disconnection, car repossession, and gambling addiction, all hidden beneath a surface appearance of middle-class stability that my money had been sustaining without my knowledge or consent. The approaching storm brings wind that stirs the ocean into white-capped waves, reminding me that natural forces operate according to laws that don't care about human planning or manipulation. My family's financial crisis is the natural consequence of choices they made without considering sustainability, responsibility, or the possibility that my income might not be permanently available for their use. As the first raindrops begin hitting my balcony windows, I realize that their catastrophe was inevitable once they started treating my success as their foundation, rather than building their own financial stability. The only question was whether I would continue enabling their irresponsibility or finally allow them to experience the natural consequences of their choices. The storm continues building offshore, promising a dramatic night of wind and rain that will test every structure along this coast, separating those built on solid foundations from those depending on external support that was never meant to be permanent. My phone rings constantly with calls from aunts, uncles, and cousins who've heard Amanda's version of events through her social media campaign. However, my wise Aunt Carol calls with a shocking revelation that Amanda has been spreading lies to extended family for years, painting me as selfish with money, while hiding that I've been supporting everyone. Saturday afternoon's peace is interrupted by a call from my cousin Janet, her voice tight with disapproval that cuts through the phone line like a blade through silence. Imogene, I just got off the phone with your mother, and I have to say I'm really shocked by what's happening with your family. Amanda posted some pretty devastating things about you abandoning the kids, and now your parents are talking about losing their house. What's going on with you? The accusatory tone immediately puts me on the defensive, but I recognize the pattern of Amanda's narrative control reaching our extended family through carefully orchestrated emotional manipulation, combined with selective sharing of information. Janet, there's a lot more to this situation than what Amanda is posting on social media. I reply carefully, not wanting to drag our entire extended family into the financial details, but needing to defend myself against character assassination. She said you cut off all financial help over some argument about a bedroom, and now Tyler and Madison might have to change schools. These are innocent children, Imogene. Whatever issues you have with your sister, surely you don't want to punish kids for adult problems. The guilt manipulation is identical to Amanda's tactics, suggesting that either she's been coaching extended family members on how to approach me, or her social media campaign has been so effective that relatives are independently reaching the same emotional pressure points. Uncle Robert calls 30 minutes later with a similar message wrapped in masculine authority that's designed to shame me into compliance through family hierarchy expectations. Your aunt and I have been talking about this situation with your parents, and we think you need to step up and take responsibility for family obligations. Your father helped pay for your college education, and your mother supported your career development. Now that you're successful, it's time to give back instead of abandoning family when they need you most. The distortion of history is startling. Dad contributed $2,000 toward my college education, while I earned a full academic scholarship and worked part-time jobs to cover living expenses. Mom's support for my career development consisted primarily of criticism about travel demands and suggestions that I should find a job closer to home that would allow more family involvement. Robert, I've been contributing $3,000 monthly to my parents for 3 years, plus covering additional expenses for Amanda and the children. This isn't about abandoning family, it's about establishing sustainable boundaries. $3,000 a month. His tone shifts immediately, surprise replacing the authoritative disapproval. Amanda said you'd been refusing to help with basic family expenses and that you were being selfish about money. The first crack in Amanda's narrative control revealing that she's been completely misrepresenting my financial involvement to our extended family while positioning herself as the victim of my supposed stinginess. Cousin Michelle calls Sunday evening with a voice full of confusion rather than accusation, having spoken with other family members who received different versions of the story from different sources. Imogene. I'm getting conflicting information about what's happening with your family. Amanda told me you refused to help with the kids' school tuition, but Uncle Robert said you've been sending thousands every month for years. And your mom mentioned something about a gambling problem that nobody else seems to know about. What's actually going on? Before I can answer, my phone rings with another call. The caller ID shows Aunt Carol's number, and I apologize to Michelle while switching to what might be the most important conversation of this entire family crisis. Carol is my father's sister, a retired social worker who has always possessed an uncanny ability to see through family manipulation and emotional blackmail. At 68, she's maintained her mental sharpness and professional insights into dysfunctional family dynamics, making her the one relative whose perspective I trust completely. Imogene Honey. I've been watching this social media drama unfold, and I need to tell you some things that might put everything in perspective. She begins her voice carrying the calm authority that comes from decades of professional experience with family dysfunction. I've been wondering when you'd finally reach your breaking point with Amanda's manipulation and your parents' enabling behavior. What took you so long? The question catches me completely off guard. Instead of criticism or pressure to restore family financial arrangements, Carol's opening statement suggests that she's been observing problematic patterns that I'm only now recognizing clearly. You knew this was happening. Honey, Amanda has been bad-mouthing you to extended family for 3 years, claiming you're successful and selfish, refusing to help family during difficult times. She's been telling everyone that you make good money, but won't contribute to family expenses, especially anything involving the children. The revelation hits like a physical blow. While I've been sending thousands monthly and covering Amanda's emergency expenses, she's been telling our entire extended family that I'm stingy and unsupportive, building a narrative that portrays her as the struggling single mother whose successful sister refuses to help. But that's completely false, I protest. I've been covering their mortgage, utilities, insurance, the kids' tuition, Amanda's art supplies, car payments, everything. I know that now, Carol replies gently. Your Uncle Robert's phone call yesterday filled in some gaps that Amanda's version of events didn't include. But for 3 years, family gatherings have included Amanda's stories about her selfish sister, who's too focused on career success to care about family struggles. The systematic character assassination explains why so many relatives immediately assumed I was the villain in this current crisis. Amanda has spent 3 years laying groundwork that positioned me as financially successful, but personally selfish, creating a narrative foundation that made her social media campaign seem credible rather than manipulative. There's more, Carol continues. Amanda has been asking other family members for money too, claiming that your parents are struggling financially because you refuse to help. She borrowed $800 from your cousin David last month, supposedly for Tyler's medical expenses, but David saw her Instagram posts about new art supplies the same week. The scope of Amanda's financial manipulation extends far beyond my family, reaching into our extended network through lies about my contributions and careful exploitation of relatives' sympathy for her children. She asked me for $1,500 2 months ago, Carol admits, said the kids needed winter clothes and school supplies, but you were going through a selfish phase and wouldn't help with necessities. I told her I'd think about it, but something felt off about the whole story. What felt off? Honey, I raised 4 kids as a single mother on a social worker's salary. I know what actual financial struggle looks like, and I know what manipulation looks like. Amanda's version of struggling included expensive coffee shop posts, art supply hauls, and spa days that didn't match someone who couldn't afford children's winter coats. Carol's professional training in recognizing manipulation and her firsthand experience with genuine single-mother financial challenges gave her perspective that other family members lacked. While relatives were responding with sympathy to Amanda's apparent struggles, Carol was noting inconsistencies that revealed the manipulation beneath the surface narrative. I've also been watching your parents enable this behavior for years, she continues. Your mother calls me regularly to complain about financial stress, but she's also bragging about Amanda's art sales and the kids' private school achievements. Those things don't add up to a family that's genuinely struggling without outside help. The contradiction that Carol identified reveals how my parents have been maintaining 2 different narratives, struggling financially when talking to me about monthly contributions, but celebrating Amanda's successes when talking to extended family about grandchildren's achievements and artistic accomplishments. They're using your money to subsidize a lifestyle that they can't afford, then complaining to family about financial struggles to justify continuing to ask for help. Carol explains, classic manipulation pattern that I've seen in dozens of families during my social work career. Monday brings a flood of phone calls from relatives who have spoken with Carol and are beginning to understand the actual financial dynamics that have been hidden beneath Amanda's victim narrative. Cousin David calls to apologize. Imogene, I owe you a huge apology. I had no idea you were supporting the family financially when Amanda asked me for money for Tyler's medical expenses. She made it sound like you were refusing to help, and I felt terrible for those kids. Uncle Robert's second call carries a completely different tone. I spoke with Carol yesterday, and I need to apologize for my previous call. I had no idea about the extent of your financial contributions, and I completely misunderstood the situation based on information that was apparently deliberately misleading. Aunt Patricia calls with fury in her voice. Amanda asked me for money last Christmas, claiming you weren't helping with the children's gifts. I sent her $300 that I honestly couldn't afford because I felt so sorry for those babies, having an aunt who wouldn't help with Christmas. Now I find out you've been paying for everything. I'm absolutely furious about being manipulated like that. By Tuesday evening, the extended family's understanding of this situation has completely reversed. Instead of pressure to restore financial support for innocent children, I'm receiving apologies for believing manipulation and offers of support for setting healthy boundaries with people who have been exploiting my generosity while systematically undermining my reputation. Carol's final call of the week provides the most validating perspective. Honey, what you're experiencing is financial abuse combined with character assassination designed to maintain access to your resources. Amanda and your parents have created a system where you provide the money while she gets the credit and you get blamed for any disruptions to their lifestyle. As someone who spent 30 years helping families recognize and escape these patterns, I want you to know that cutting off financial access was exactly the right decision. The manipulation and guilt campaigns you're experiencing now are completely predictable responses when an abuse victim finally establishes boundaries. The most important thing to remember is that their financial crisis is the natural consequence of choices they made while depending on your money instead of building their own stability. You're not responsible for fixing the situation they created, and you're not obligated to continue funding lifestyle choices that they made without considering sustainability. Wednesday evening finds me on my balcony watching stars emerge over the Pacific, finally understanding that the isolation I felt during this family crisis was artificially created through 3 years of systematic lies, told to extended family members who would have supported my boundary setting if they had known the actual facts. Amanda's manipulation campaign failed not because her tactics were ineffective, but because truth has a way of emerging when people start comparing notes and asking detailed questions about claims that don't match observable reality. The extended family that I thought would pressure me to restore financial support has instead become a network of allies who understand that enabling financial abuse isn't helping anyone, especially not the children who are learning that love is conditional on monetary contributions. The stars continue emerging as darkness deepens over the ocean, and I realize that truth creates its own support system when people have enough information to recognize manipulation and make informed judgments about family dynamics that had been deliberately obscured. Desperate and facing eviction, my parents and Amanda arrive unannounced at my corporate office building, creating a public scene and demanding I stop this childish behavior. However, their manipulation backfires spectacularly when my colleagues witness their entitled behavior firsthand, and my boss offers security assistance. Thursday afternoon transforms from routine quarterly planning into something approaching a nightmare when my assistant Jessica calls my extension with confusion evident in her professional voice. Ms. Peterson, there are 3 people in the lobby claiming to be your family members. They don't have an appointment, but they're insisting they need to speak with you immediately about a family emergency. Security is asking how you'd like to handle the situation. My stomach drops as I realize that my family's desperation has reached the point where they're willing to invade my professional space and create workplace drama to force a confrontation about money. The violation feels profound and shocking, crossing boundaries that I never imagined they would consider breaching. I'll be down in 5 minutes, I tell Jessica, grabbing my suit jacket and trying to mentally prepare for whatever public scene Amanda has orchestrated in the marble lobby of my prestigious downtown office building. The elevator ride to the ground floor feels like descending into an ambush, and when the doors open, the scene that unfolds is worse than anything I could have anticipated. My parents and Amanda are positioned near the security desk, with Amanda holding Madison's hand while Tyler stands beside my father, both children looking confused and uncomfortable in the formal business environment. Amanda is dressed in her most dramatically artistic outfit, flowing scarves, vintage jewelry, and the kind of bohemian ensemble that she believes makes her look like a struggling creative genius, rather than someone who has been financially dependent on her sister's corporate salary for 3 years. Her voice carries across the lobby's marble acoustics as she addresses the security guard with theatrical desperation. We just need 5 minutes with my sister to discuss a family crisis that affects these innocent children. Surely your company doesn't have policies against employees speaking with their own family members during emergencies. Mom and Dad flank her on either side, their expressions combining embarrassment about the public setting with determination to force this confrontation, regardless of professional consequences for my career. Imogene, Mom calls out when she spots me emerging from the elevator bank. Thank goodness. We've been trying to reach you all week, and this situation has become so serious that we couldn't wait any longer. The attention of everyone in the lobby turns toward our family drama, including several colleagues who recognize me and are witnessing this public meltdown with expressions ranging from surprise to sympathy to professional concern about my personal life affecting workplace dynamics. Amanda immediately launches into her prepared speech, her voice projected to ensure maximum audience for this emotional manipulation performance. Jeannie, we need you to stop this ridiculous power play and think about what's really important here. Tyler and Madison are going to lose their school. Mom and Dad are facing foreclosure, and you're sitting up there in your fancy office pretending that family doesn't matter anymore. Her reference to my fancy office carries deliberate contempt designed to paint my professional success as evidence of misplaced priorities, while the phrase ridiculous power play reframes my financial independence as childish manipulation rather than adult boundary setting. These children love you. Amanda continues, her voice breaking with practiced emotion. They don't understand why their aunt suddenly decided that her comfort is more important than their education and stability. Tyler keeps asking when Aunt Jeannie is going to fix everything because he still believes that family members take care of each other. Tyler looks increasingly distressed by being positioned as a prop in this public emotional manipulation, while Madison clings to Amanda's hand and stares around the intimidating corporate lobby with wide eyes that suggest she'd rather be anywhere else than serving as a guilt weapon in adult financial warfare. Dad steps forward with the authoritative tone he typically reserves for serious family discussions, apparently unaware of how his approach appears to professional colleagues who are observing this scene. Imogene, this has gone far enough. Whatever point you're trying to make has been made, and now it's time to act like an adult and restore the family financial arrangements that have been working perfectly well for everyone involved. The assumption that I'm making a point rather than establishing permanent boundaries reveals how completely they misunderstand the nature of my decision. In their minds, this is temporary leverage designed to extract better treatment rather than a fundamental shift in my willingness to subsidize their lifestyle choices. My boss, Jennifer, emerges from the elevator bank having apparently been alerted to the lobby situation by building security or concerned staff members. Her expression is carefully neutral, but I can see professional concern in her eyes as she approaches our family confrontation. "Imogene, is everything all right?" Jennifer asks quietly, positioning herself beside me in a gesture of subtle support that doesn't go unnoticed by my family members. Amanda immediately redirects her emotional performance toward this new audience, apparently believing that involving my supervisor will create additional pressure for me to comply with their financial demands. I'm Amanda Imogene's sister. We're so sorry to interrupt her workday, but we're dealing with a family crisis that couldn't wait for evening hours. My children are about to lose their school and my parents are facing foreclosure, all because of a misunderstanding about living arrangements that has gotten completely out of hand. Jennifer's expression shifts slightly as she processes Amanda's version of events, which carefully omits any mention of 3 years of financial support or the basement accommodation that triggered my boundary-setting decision. "I see," Jennifer replies diplomatically. "Imogene, would you like to use the conference room on the second floor to discuss this privately with your family?" Before I can respond, Amanda escalates her public manipulation by addressing the growing audience of employees and visitors who are witnessing this lobby confrontation. "We don't need privacy for this conversation. Family financial responsibilities aren't secret matters that need to be hidden from professional colleagues. Imogene has been blessed with career success, and now she's using that success to punish children for adult disagreements about bedroom arrangements." The public nature of Amanda's appeal is clearly designed to create professional embarrassment that will motivate me to agree to their financial demands rather than continue this scene in front of colleagues and clients. But the strategy backfires completely when several of my coworkers exchange glances that clearly indicate they're recognizing manipulation tactics rather than feeling sympathy for Amanda's apparent victim status. David Martinez from our legal department approaches the group, his expression carrying the kind of professional authority that immediately changes the dynamic of this confrontation. "Excuse me, but this lobby is a place of business, not a venue for family disputes. If you need to discuss personal matters with Ms. Peterson, I suggest you schedule an appropriate meeting outside of business hours and off company property." Amanda's face flushes with indignation at being dismissed by someone she clearly views as having no authority over family relationships, but Dad immediately recognizes that they've overstepped professional boundaries in a way that could damage my career reputation. "We apologize for the disruption," Dad says, quickly shooting a warning look at Amanda before she can respond with additional emotional manipulation. "We weren't aware that family conversations weren't appropriate in office building lobbies." Jennifer maintains her diplomatic approach while making the company's position clear. "Family is certainly important, but we do need to maintain professional environments in our workplace. Imogene, why don't you take the rest of the afternoon off to address this situation privately?" The offer is delivered as support for me, rather than pressure to comply with my family's demands, but Amanda clearly interprets it as validation of their right to interrupt my professional responsibilities whenever they determine that family matters require immediate attention. As we move toward the lobby exit, I overhear conversations among colleagues that reveal how this public scene has been perceived by people who understand professional boundaries and recognize emotional manipulation. "Did you see how she was using those kids as props?" whispers Sarah from marketing. The sister kept talking about family financial responsibilities, like it was Imogene's job to support everyone, adds Michael from client services. "That was classic guilt manipulation," observes Patricia from Human Resources. "I've seen it 100 times in employee assistance cases." The professional perspective that my colleagues bring to this situation provides clarity that my family's emotional manipulation has prevented me from achieving. People who understand workplace dynamics and adult relationships immediately recognize the manipulation tactics and boundary violations that my family has been using to maintain financial control. Walking out of my office building with my parents, Amanda, and the children feels like being kidnapped from my professional identity and dragged back into family dysfunction that no longer fits the person I've become or the life I'm building. But perhaps most importantly, the public nature of their intervention attempt has revealed to my professional network that I'm dealing with family members who don't respect boundaries, don't understand appropriate behavior in professional settings, and are willing to use children as emotional weapons to manipulate financial decisions. Instead of creating pressure for me to restore their financial arrangements, this lobby confrontation has demonstrated to colleagues whose opinions matter to my career that my family views my professional success as their personal resource rather than respecting my achievements and workplace responsibilities. The drive back to my coastal apartment feels like escape from kidnapping rather than resolution of family conflict, and I realize that their desperation has reached levels that make them dangerous to my professional reputation and personal well-being in ways I hadn't previously anticipated. After consulting with a family law attorney and financial advisor, I agree to meet my family at a neutral location. I arrive at my lawyer's conference room with professionally prepared documentation, showing every contribution over 3 years, demanding full repayment before considering any future relationship. Friday morning finds me sitting across from Catherine Williams, a family law attorney whose office overlooks the Willamette River through floor-to-ceiling windows that provide calming views of water flowing steadily toward the Pacific. Her reputation for handling complex family financial disputes convinced me that professional guidance was essential before any further contact with my family. "Based on what you've described, you have several options." Catherine explains, her voice carrying the calm authority that comes from decades of experience with financial manipulation and family dysfunction. The systematic nature of these transfers, combined with the emotional manipulation and misrepresentation to extended family, could potentially constitute financial abuse. She opens a folder containing documentation that my financial advisor prepared 3 years of bank statements, canceled checks, credit card payments, and detailed calculations that reveal the full scope of my family's financial dependence on my income. $108,000 in direct transfers, plus approximately $32,000 in additional expenses, including insurance premiums, emergency payments, and specific requests for children's expenses. Catherine reviews. The total approaches $140,000 over 36 months. The numbers look even more staggering when organized in professional documentation, rather than scattered across monthly bank statements and credit card bills. My financial advisor highlighted patterns that reveal how systematically my family extracted money through carefully timed requests that always seemed reasonable individually, but created overwhelming cumulative impact. What are my options? I ask, though part of me already knows that legal action would create permanent family destruction that might not be worth the financial recovery. You could pursue full reimbursement through civil court, arguing that these transfers were obtained through misrepresentation and emotional manipulation. Catherine explains. However, family court judges often view financial support between adult family members as gifts rather than loans, unless there's clear documentation establishing repayment expectations. The gift versus loan distinction explains why my family has operated with such casual disregard for the sustainability of their financial dependence. Without explicit loan agreements and repayment schedules, they could reasonably argue that my contributions were voluntary support rather than temporary assistance that created repayment obligations. Alternatively, Catherine continues, you could use this documentation to establish clear boundaries for any future relationship making family contact, conditional on acknowledgement of the financial impact and commitment to behavioral changes, including family therapy. The family therapy option appeals to me because it addresses the underlying manipulation patterns rather than just the financial symptoms, but it also requires my family to acknowledge problems they've been systematically denying. I recommend starting with a structured family meeting in neutral territory, she suggests. Present the documentation professionally, explain your boundary requirements clearly, and give them opportunity to respond without emotional manipulation or guilt tactics. Richard Chen, my financial advisor, joins the conversation with additional perspective on the economic implications of different approaches to resolving this situation. From a purely financial standpoint, pursuing legal reimbursement would likely cost more in attorney fees and court costs than you could realistically recover, Richard explains. But establishing clear documentation serves multiple purposes beyond potential legal action. He pulls up projections, showing how my financial independence will affect my long-term wealth building and retirement planning. Without these monthly transfers and additional family expenses, your annual savings capacity increases by approximately $65,000. Invested properly over the next 20 years, that represents potential accumulated wealth of over $2 million. $2 million. The cost of continuing to subsidize my family's lifestyle choices extends far beyond monthly cash flow into genuine wealth building that could provide financial security for my entire lifetime. However, Richard continues, the emotional and psychological costs of completely severing family relationships might outweigh financial benefits. The documentation we've prepared gives you leverage to negotiate sustainable boundaries rather than choosing between total financial exploitation and complete family estrangement. Saturday afternoon, I send a carefully worded text to my parents requesting a family meeting at Catherine's conference room the following Monday. The message explains that I've consulted with legal and financial advisors, prepared comprehensive documentation of our financial relationship, and want to discuss sustainable solutions that protect everyone's long-term interests. Mom's response arrives within minutes. Imogene, please don't involve lawyers in family matters. We can work this out ourselves if everyone approaches the conversation with love and forgiveness. The immediate resistance to professional mediation reveals their preference for emotional manipulation over objective evaluation of financial facts, but I respond firmly that the meeting location and format are non-negotiable conditions for my participation in any further family discussions. Monday morning, Catherine's conference room feels like a courtroom as my family settles into chairs across from the professionally organized documentation that will govern this conversation. Dad appears uncomfortable in his dress shirt and tie, while Mom clutches a tissues box that suggests she's prepared for emotional manipulation if factual discussion proves unsuccessful. Amanda arrives dressed in her most conservative outfit, apparently recognizing that her usual artistic aesthetic might not be appropriate for a legal setting, but her expression carries the defiant anger of someone who believes she's being subjected to unnecessary formality for what should be a private family conversation. Tyler and Madison are notably absent, which I requested specifically to prevent their use as emotional manipulation tools during adult financial discussions. Thank you for agreeing to meet under these circumstances. I begin my voice carrying professional tone that I typically reserve for challenging client presentations. I've asked Catherine and Richard to document our family's financial relationship over the past 3 years so we can discuss sustainable solutions based on facts rather than emotions. Catherine opens her presentation folder and distributes copies of the financial summary to each family member. The reaction is immediate and revealing. Mom gasps audibly when she sees the total amount clearly calculated. I had no idea it was so much money over such a long time. Dad's face flushes as he reviews the systematic monthly transfers that he apparently hadn't been tracking comprehensively. These numbers are accurate, but they don't reflect the context of temporary assistance during difficult circumstances. Amanda's reaction is pure fury. Are you seriously trying to turn family financial support into some kind of business transaction? This is the most cold and calculating thing I've ever seen. Amanda, Catherine interjects with professional calm. Family financial relationships benefit from clear documentation and sustainable planning, especially when significant amounts are involved over extended periods. Richard presents the second phase of documentation, projected long-term impact on my financial security if these transfers continue indefinitely without established limits or repayment provisions. Based on current patterns, continuing this level of financial support would delay Imogene's retirement by approximately 15 years and reduce her lifetime wealth accumulation by over $2 million. Richard explains with the objective tone that financial advisors use to discuss retirement planning implications. These projections assume no increases in family financial needs, no additional emergencies or special circumstances, and consistent income growth for Imogene that supports both her own financial goals and continued family subsidies. The mathematical reality of permanent financial dependence creates silence in the conference room as my family processes implications they've apparently never considered during 3 years of assuming my contributions would continue indefinitely. "What exactly are you proposing?" Dad asks finally, his voice carrying resignation rather than the anger I expected. "2 options." Catherine replies, consulting notes from our preparation meetings. Complete cessation of financial support with no further contact or structured repayment of previous transfers, combined with family therapy to address the manipulation patterns that created this unsustainable situation. Repayment. Mom's voice rises with incredulity. How could we possibly repay money that we spent on housing education and basic living expenses? We don't have savings accounts full of money that we've been hiding from you. "That's exactly the problem," I say quietly. "For 3 years, you've been spending my money without building your own financial stability or planning for independence from my support. The result is complete dependence that could continue indefinitely unless we establish clear boundaries and accountability." Amanda's response reveals the core issue that family therapy would need to address. "So you're willing to destroy family relationships over money. You're going to demand that your parents pay back financial help during the most difficult period of their lives. What kind of person does that make you?" The emotional manipulation continues even in professional legal setting, but now I have witnesses who understand family dynamics and can recognize guilt tactics that have controlled my financial decisions for 3 years. Amanda, Catherine responds firmly, "Financial boundaries aren't about destroying relationships. They're about creating sustainable foundations that allow healthy relationships to develop without exploitation or manipulation." The meeting concludes with my family requesting time to consider their options, but their parting comments reveal continued resistance to accountability and preference for emotional manipulation over objective problem solving. As they leave Catherine's office, I realize that this professional intervention has created clarity about their unwillingness to acknowledge the financial impact of their choices or commit to behavioral changes that would enable healthy, ongoing relationships. The documentation now exists to support whatever decision I make about future contact, but more importantly, the professional perspective has validated my boundary setting as necessary self-protection rather than family abandonment. Faced with professional documentation and potential legal action, my parents offer to sign over the family house to me in exchange for resumed monthly payments, not realizing the house has negative equity. Amanda offers to let me be involved with the children again, as if access to my niece and nephew is valuable currency. Tuesday morning brings a series of increasingly desperate phone calls that reveal how my family's panic has evolved into creative attempts to restore their financial arrangements through offers that they believe will be irresistible, but actually demonstrate their continued misunderstanding of my priorities and needs. Dad calls first, his voice carrying the artificial enthusiasm he typically uses when presenting home improvement projects or investment ideas that he's convinced will solve multiple problems simultaneously. Imogene, your mother, and I spent all night discussing sustainable solutions, and we've come up with an arrangement that could work perfectly for everyone involved. He begins, apparently convinced that the right financial structure will restore their access to my income. We want to sign the house over to you completely. Full ownership transfer with your name on the deed, so you'll have a valuable real estate asset while continuing the monthly contributions that help us manage ongoing expenses. The offer is presented as generous gift-giving rather than acknowledgement that they're proposing to burden me with responsibility for a property that I never wanted to own in a neighborhood that I haven't lived in for 8 years as collateral for continued financial support that benefits only them. Dad, I don't want to own your house, I reply carefully. I have my own housing arrangements that meet my needs perfectly. But think about the long-term investment potential. He continues, apparently believing that the financial logic will override my discomfort with the manipulative nature of this proposal. Real estate equity building property, appreciation potential rental income when we're eventually not living there anymore. The phrase, "when we're eventually not living there anymore," reveals the deeper assumption behind this offer. They're proposing that I assume financial responsibility for their housing, while they continue living there indefinitely with vague future promises about rental income that might partially offset the ongoing costs I would inherit. Have you had the house appraised recently? I ask, curious about their understanding of their property's actual value. Well, no, but we bought it for $230,000 15 years ago, and the neighborhood has been appreciating steadily. It's probably worth at least $300,000 now. Richard, my financial advisor, had actually researched their property value as part of preparing comprehensive family financial documentation. The house is currently worth approximately $210,000, while their remaining mortgage balance is $228,000, creating negative equity of $18,000. Their generous offer to give me the house would actually burden me with immediate debt, plus responsibility for ongoing mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs for a property in a declining neighborhood that I have no interest in occupying or managing as rental investment. I'll need to think about that proposal. I replied diplomatically, not wanting to explain immediately that their offer would cost me money rather than providing the valuable asset they imagine. Mom calls 30 minutes later with a different approach that focuses on emotional restoration rather than financial restructuring. Honey, I've been thinking about ways to repair the hurt feelings and misunderstandings that have created this situation. She begins using the therapeutic language that she's clearly researched as preparation for negotiating renewed financial support. What if we set up regular family meetings where everyone can express their feelings and work through conflicts in healthy ways? We could even include Tyler and Madison so they understand that family relationships require effort and compromise from everyone involved. The proposal to include children in adult financial discussions reveals how completely she misunderstands appropriate boundaries between family therapy and manipulative exploitation of children's emotional attachment for leverage in monetary negotiations. I think professional family therapy would be more appropriate than family meetings that we organize ourselves, I suggest. Oh, therapy is so expensive, and frankly, I don't think we need outside intervention for problems that we can solve through better communication and understanding, Mom replies quickly. What we really need is commitment from everyone to prioritize family relationships over individual concerns. The coded language is transparent commitment from me to restore financial support, framed as prioritizing family relationships over individual concerns about my own financial security and personal boundaries. Wednesday brings Amanda's most manipulative counteroffer delivered through a phone call that begins with artificial sweetness, designed to suggest that she's recognized her mistakes and wants to rebuild our sisterly relationship. Jeannie, I've been doing a lot of soul-searching about how family dynamics got so complicated, and I want to apologize for not being more grateful for everything you've done for me and the kids over the past few years. She begins her tone, carrying practiced humility that doesn't match her typical approach to these conversations. I realize I took your financial support for granted, and I should have been more appreciative of the sacrifices you were making to help us during my divorce transition period. The apology sounds promising until she transitions into the actual proposal that reveals her continued manipulative approach to family relationships. What I'd like to offer is giving you a real role in Tyler and Madison's lives moving forward. You could be involved in school decisions, extracurricular activity choices, even helping plan their birthday parties and holiday celebrations. They miss having their aunt as an active part of their daily life. The offer is presented as generous gift-giving, rather than acknowledgement that access to my own niece and nephew should never have been conditional on financial contributions, and that using children's affection as bargaining leverage represents continued emotional abuse. You could even take them for weekend visits to your apartment, give them experiences like beach time and coastal activities that we can't afford to provide ourselves. Think about how much that would mean to them having special aunt and niece-nephew adventures. The suggestion that I should take children for weekend visits while continuing to fund their parents' lifestyle reveals how completely Amanda misunderstands my objections to the current family dynamics. She's offering me increased childcare responsibilities as though that represents compensation for continued financial exploitation. And of course, we'd need the monthly contributions to continue so we can maintain stability for the kids' education and living situation. But you'd have real input into how that money gets spent, more transparency about family budgeting, maybe even direct payments to schools and service providers, so you can see exactly where your contributions are going. The transparency offer demonstrates that she understands I've been concerned about financial accountability, but her solution maintains my financial responsibility while giving me additional oversight duties rather than addressing the fundamental problem of their dependence on my income. Thursday's final counteroffer comes through a conference call with both parents, and Amanda suggesting they've coordinated this approach as their most compelling argument for restored financial arrangements. We've been thinking about this whole situation, and we realize that maybe we haven't been treating you with the respect and appreciation that your generosity deserves. Dad begins his tone carrying the forced sincerity that he uses for important business negotiations. What if we drew up a formal agreement that recognizes your financial contributions as loans rather than gifts, with a reasonable repayment schedule once Amanda's art business becomes more profitable and I return to full-time employment? The loan structure addresses legitimate concerns about financial accountability, but the repayment timeline based on Amanda's art business profitability and Dad's return to full-time employment at age 55 creates conditions that could easily justify indefinite delays in actual repayment. We could also establish a family advisory role for you in major financial decisions. Mom adds, investment choices, home improvements, children's educational planning, even Amanda's business development strategy. Your input would be valued and implemented in family financial management. The advisory role offer suggests increased involvement in family decisions as compensation for continued financial support, but it also creates additional time and emotional energy obligations that would deepen my entanglement with their financial dependency rather than establishing independence. Think about it from Tyler and Madison's perspective. Amanda adds playing her final manipulation card. They're at ages where stability and security really matter for their emotional development. Disrupting their living situation and education during these formative years could have lasting psychological impacts that affect their entire future success. The suggestion that my financial independence could psychologically damage my niece and nephew represents the most sophisticated guilt manipulation Amanda has deployed, positioning children's mental health as dependent on my continued subsidizing of their parents' financial irresponsibility. Thursday evening finds me reviewing these counteroffers while watching sunset paint the Pacific in brilliant oranges and purples colors that seem to shift and change with each moment as light angles evolve across the endless horizon. Each proposal reveals my family's fundamental misunderstanding of my motivations for establishing financial boundaries. They continue viewing this as temporary leverage designed to extract better treatment rather than permanent decision to prioritize my own financial security and emotional well-being. Their offers of house ownership advisory roles, increased access to children, and formal loan structures all assume that the right combination of incentives will restore their access to my income, rather than recognizing that I've chosen independence over continued financial exploitation. The sunset continues its natural progression without regard for human negotiations or family manipulation, reminding me that some changes occur according to natural laws rather than family pressure tactics designed to maintain unsustainable arrangements. As darkness settles over the ocean and stars begin emerging in the clear coastal sky, I realize that my family's desperate counteroffers have actually clarified rather than confused my decision about the future of our relationships. As my family continues their manipulation campaign, wonderful news arrives about my apartment building being converted to condominiums. I have the opportunity to purchase my unit at a discount, and with my promotion salary plus money, no longer going to family, I can afford the coastal lifestyle full-time while building substantial savings. Friday morning brings a certified letter that transforms my housing situation from temporary luxury into permanent investment opportunity. The envelope bears the elegant letterhead of Ocean View Heights Property Management, and inside is an offer that seems almost too perfect, considering the timing with my family's financial crisis and my recent promotion. Dear valued resident, the letter begins, "We are pleased to inform you of an exclusive opportunity for existing tenants to purchase their units before our luxury condominium conversion goes to public market. The property management company has decided to convert the entire apartment building into individually owned condominiums, offering current residents first right of refusal at prices 20% below projected market value. My 8th floor penthouse unit, with its stunning ocean views and premium finishes, is offered at $480,000 compared to anticipated market value of $600,000. Sarah Mitchell, the property manager, calls that afternoon to discuss details that make this opportunity even more attractive than the initial letter suggested. Ms. Peterson, your unit has been one of our most successful Airbnb rentals when you've been traveling for business, Sarah explains. The condo conversion will allow you to continue short-term rental income during periods when you're away, but you'll also build equity rather than paying rent. The financial mathematics are compelling. My monthly mortgage payment, including property taxes and homeowners association fees, would be approximately $3,200. During months when I travel extensively for work, Airbnb income from the unit typically generates between $4,000 and $5,000, creating positive cash flow that effectively pays for my housing while building ownership equity. Additionally, Sarah continues, the condo association will handle all exterior maintenance, landscaping, and common area management. Ownership gives you control over interior renovations and improvements while eliminating landlord restrictions on modifications. That evening, I schedule a call with Richard Chen to review the financial implications of purchasing the condominium compared to continuing rental arrangements or seeking alternative housing that costs less but provides fewer amenities. From a purely financial standpoint, this purchase makes exceptional sense, given your increased salary and eliminated family expenses. Richard explains while reviewing my updated budget projections. Your monthly housing costs remain essentially unchanged, but you'll build approximately $2,000 monthly in equity appreciation based on coastal property trends. The analysis shows that my gross income has increased by $55,000 annually through the promotion, while my family-related expenses have decreased by approximately $78,000 annually, creating a net positive cash flow change of $133,000 yearly. That additional income capacity supports not only the condominium purchase, but also aggressive retirement savings investment portfolio building and establishment of emergency funds that will provide genuine financial security. Richard continues, more importantly, your housing costs become fixed at current levels, while rental properties along this coastline typically increase 5 to 7% annually. Ownership protects you from future rent inflation while building wealth through property appreciation. The mathematical clarity is startling. Within 5 years, the equity building and rent inflation protection could save me over $40,000 compared to continued rental arrangements, while providing complete control over my living environment and eliminating uncertainty about lease renewals or property management changes. Saturday brings another positive development when I receive an invitation to join the Coastal Hiking Club, a group of outdoor enthusiasts who explore trails along the Oregon coast every weekend. The invitation came through Marcus Rivera, a marine biologist I met at a coffee shop near my apartment building 3 weeks ago. We're always looking for new members who appreciate the natural beauty of this coastline. Marcus explains during a phone call that feels refreshingly free from family drama and financial manipulation. Tomorrow, we're exploring the trails at Cape Perpetua with optional tide pool investigations if anyone's interested in marine biology education. The prospect of spending time with people who share interests in outdoor activities and environmental appreciation, rather than constantly navigating family financial crises and emotional manipulation, feels like discovering a completely different way to spend weekend time. Sunday's hiking experience exceeds all expectations. The group includes 12 people ranging in age from mid-20s to early 60s, representing careers from teaching to engineering to environmental consulting. Conversations focus on trail conditions, wildlife observations, photography techniques, and shared appreciation for the dramatic coastline that I see from my apartment windows every morning. Marcus proves to be an engaging companion whose knowledge of marine ecosystems adds fascinating depth to our tide pool explorations. His passion for ocean conservation work creates natural conversation about environmental protection efforts, sustainable tourism practices, and the delicate balance between economic development and habitat preservation along the Oregon coast. I've been researching whale migration patterns for the past 5 years. He explains while pointing out distinctive rock formations that serve as navigation markers for gray whales during their annual journey between Alaska and Mexico. This coastline provides critical feeding areas during specific seasons, which makes protecting these waters essential for Pacific whale population health. The intellectual stimulation of learning about marine biology from someone with genuine expertise, combined with physical activity in stunning natural settings, provides the kind of weekend experience that had been impossible during years of family financial crises and emotional manipulation that required constant attention and problem solving. Monday brings my first pottery class at the Ocean View Community Arts Center, another activity that became possible once my time and emotional energy were no longer constantly consumed by family drama and guilt-based requests for financial assistance. The pottery instructor Elena Rodriguez creates an atmosphere of creative exploration without pressure for immediate artistic success or commercial productivity. Working with clay provides meditative relief from the analytical demands of marketing strategy and client relationship management, while the artistic process offers creative expression without the emotional manipulation that surrounded Amanda's artistic career development. The most important thing is finding your own relationship with the clay. Elena explains while demonstrating centering techniques on the pottery wheel. Every person brings different energy and intention to this work, and the clay responds to authenticity rather than trying to copy someone else's style. The philosophy resonates deeply after years of trying to manage family relationships that required constant adaptation to other people's financial needs and emotional demands rather than developing my own preferences and priorities. Tuesday evening finds me researching interior design options for customizing my condominium once the purchase is finalized. The freedom to make permanent modifications to my living space, combined with financial resources that aren't constantly flowing toward family emergencies, creates possibilities for creating a home environment that reflects my actual tastes and needs. Online portfolios of coastal interior design showcase options ranging from minimalist modern to rustic nautical themes, all emphasizing the natural light and ocean views that make this location so special. For the first time in years, I'm planning expenditures on my own comfort and aesthetic preferences rather than calculating how much money remains after family financial obligations. The contrast with the basement corner that my family offered as accommodation becomes more stark with each design decision I consider. Custom built-in shelving for books and art objects, professional lighting that enhances morning sunrise views, kitchen upgrades that support cooking for pleasure rather than convenience, bathroom renovations that create a spa-like environment for relaxation after demanding workdays. Wednesday brings confirmation that my mortgage application has been approved at favorable interest rates that reflect my excellent credit score and increased income verification. The loan officer comments that my debt-to-income ratio is exceptionally strong for someone in my income bracket, primarily because I carry no credit card debt, have minimal monthly obligations, and demonstrate consistent income growth over the past several years. The mortgage approval process requires documentation of all income sources and monthly expenses, creating an official record of my financial independence from family support obligations that would have complicated loan qualification if those payments were still occurring regularly. Thursday evening, I signed the preliminary purchase agreement for my condominium while sitting on the balcony that will soon belong to me permanently. The ocean waves continue their eternal rhythm unchanged by human ownership documents or family financial crises, providing perspective about the natural forces that operate independently of manipulation and guilt tactics. The signature feels like claiming permanent sanctuary from family dysfunction, while building the kind of life that prioritizes personal growth, meaningful relationships, and financial security rather than constantly managing other people's poor choices and emotional blackmail. As weekend approaches, I realize that the past 2 weeks have been filled with positive developments that were only possible once I stopped directing my time, energy, and money toward family members who offered me basement accommodation and bucket bathrooms in exchange for subsidizing their lifestyle choices. The hiking club pottery classes, condominium purchase, and developing friendship with Marcus represent the kind of life that becomes available when personal resources are invested in your own growth and happiness, rather than other people's financial dependencies and manipulation campaigns. 6 months later, my life has transformed completely, while my family has learned to manage their own finances. Amanda found employment at a local art gallery my parents discovered financial counseling, and they've begun showing genuine respect for my boundaries. Cautious reconciliation develops on my terms, built on mutual respect rather than financial dependency. The spring morning light streaming through my condominium windows illuminates a life that has been completely rebuilt around healthy relationships, personal growth, and financial independence. From my kitchen table, I can watch fishing boats returning to harbor with their dawn catches while I review quarterly investment statements that show steady wealth building for the first time in my adult life. 6 months ago, I was offered a camping cot in a concrete basement corner and told to be grateful for the accommodation while my money funded someone else's artistic aspirations. Today, I own a luxury coastal property, manage a team of 12 marketing professionals across 3 major cities, and maintain savings accounts that provide genuine security rather than constant financial anxiety about family emergencies and guilt-based requests. The most remarkable change has been the gradual evolution of my family relationships from manipulation and financial dependency into something approaching genuine mutual respect. The transformation didn't happen quickly or easily, but crisis often reveals possibilities that comfort never allows people to explore. Amanda was the first to make real changes, primarily because her credit card access disappeared immediately when I canceled my financial support, leaving her with no choice but to develop actual employment income rather than depending on artistic sales that never materialized consistently. The art gallery position she found pays $32,000 annually, plus commission on sales, not enough to maintain the lifestyle my contributions had been subsidizing, but sufficient to cover basic living expenses for herself and the children. More importantly, the job required her to develop professional skills beyond artistic creation, customer service inventory, management sales strategy, and collaboration with other artists whose work generates consistent income. Working at the gallery has taught me things about the art business that I never understood when I was just focused on creating. Amanda admitted during our first coffee meeting in 4 months. I was so naive about the difference between artistic talent and commercial success. Most successful artists treat their creativity like a business rather than expecting other people to fund their artistic exploration. The admission represented genuine growth rather than manipulative apology designed to restore financial access. Amanda's voice carried the humility that comes from discovering personal capabilities that had been underdeveloped during years of financial dependency. Tyler and Madison adapted to their new school situation better than anyone anticipated once the drama about private education expenses ended, and they settled into excellent public schools that provided art programs, music education, and athletic opportunities that engaged their individual interests without requiring tuition payments. The kids are actually happier in their new school, Amanda continued. Tyler joined the soccer team, and Madison is learning violin through the music program. They've made friends with children from more diverse backgrounds, and they're not constantly hearing adult conversations about money stress and family financial problems. My parents' transformation required professional intervention, but the financial counseling they initially resisted became essential once they faced genuine consequences for their poor planning and impulsive spending decisions. Dad's gambling addiction required specialized treatment that helped him understand how my regular financial contributions had enabled increasingly risky behavior by creating an illusion of financial security that made losses seem manageable and recoverable. I never thought of myself as having a gambling problem because we never missed mortgage payments or struggled with basic expenses. Dad explained during one of our monthly family therapy sessions, "Your monthly contributions made everything seem stable, so losing money at the casino felt like entertainment rather than destroying our financial foundation." The therapy sessions facilitated by Dr. Patricia Morrison, a family counselor who specializes in financial dysfunction and emotional manipulation patterns, provided neutral space for addressing behavioral changes that needed to occur before healthy relationships could develop. Financial enmeshment in families often prevents individual growth and responsibility. Dr. Morrison explained during a session that focused on establishing sustainable boundaries. When one family member consistently rescues others from consequences, it prevents necessary learning and adaptation that builds genuine independence. Mom's learning process involved recognizing how her emotional manipulation tactics had prevented honest communication about family financial planning and individual needs. I was so focused on keeping everyone happy and avoiding conflict that I enabled behaviors that weren't sustainable, Mom admitted. Asking you for money felt easier than having difficult conversations with Amanda about employment or with your father about gambling, but easier isn't always healthier for family relationships. The most significant change has been their recognition that my professional success and financial independence benefit our family relationships rather than threatening them. Instead of viewing my career achievements as resources for their use, they've begun celebrating my accomplishments as individual success that enhances rather than competes with family connections. My promotion to regional director now generates conversations about professional challenges and strategic developments rather than requests for financial assistance during family gatherings that happen monthly rather than weekly, providing appropriate space for individual growth between family interactions. The Coastal Condominium has become a neutral venue for family visits that occur on my terms rather than their emergency schedules. Tyler and Madison enjoy beach time and tide pool explorations when they visit, creating positive aunt-niece-nephew relationships that aren't complicated by financial dependence or guilt manipulation. Marcus and I have developed a relationship built on shared interests in environmental conservation outdoor activities and intellectual curiosity about marine ecosystems. He respects my professional responsibilities and appreciates my independence, rather than viewing my financial resources as assets for his use. I've never dated someone who owns oceanfront property and manages major corporate accounts, Marcus told me recently while we watched whales migrate past our balcony. But what I find most attractive is your commitment to personal growth and healthy boundaries. You've created a life that reflects your values rather than other people's expectations. The hiking club has expanded my social network to include people who appreciate natural beauty, physical challenges, and environmental education without emotional manipulation or hidden financial agendas. Weekend activities focus on exploration and personal enrichment rather than crisis management and guilt-based obligation. The pottery classes have developed into a serious artistic pursuit that provides creative expression and meditative relief from professional responsibilities. Working with clay offers the satisfaction of creating something beautiful with my own hands, while the community of artists focuses on supportive encouragement rather than competitive manipulation. My financial advisor reports that wealth building has accelerated dramatically since family financial support ended with retirement projections, indicating security that will allow early retirement with luxury lifestyle maintenance if desired. Your investment portfolio has grown more in the past 6 months than in the previous 3 years combined, Richard explains during our quarterly review. Consistent savings without emergency withdrawals for family crises allows compound interest to work effectively while building the kind of financial foundation that provides genuine independence. The professional development opportunities available through my expanded role have included executive training programs, strategic planning conferences, and leadership development initiatives that enhance my skills while building networks with other successful professionals who understand the relationship between personal boundaries and career advancement. Most importantly, I've learned that loving family members doesn't require sacrificing personal financial security or accepting emotional manipulation as the price of maintaining relationships. Healthy family dynamics depend on mutual respect rather than financial dependency, and genuine love supports individual growth rather than exploiting personal success for other people's benefit. The basement corner that was offered as accommodation 6 months ago now seems like a memory from someone else's life, representing a level of disrespect and manipulation that I can no longer imagine accepting from anyone who claims to care about my well-being. Setting financial boundaries wasn't about punishing family members for their choices. It was about creating space for all of us to develop healthier relationships based on authentic connection rather than monetary obligation and guilt-based control. The ocean waves continue their eternal rhythm outside my windows, reminding me that some forces operate according to natural laws rather than human manipulation. Personal growth follows similar patterns, requiring space and time to develop authentic strength rather than artificial support that prevents necessary adaptation. As I close my laptop after reviewing investment statements that show steady progress toward genuine financial independence, I realized that the greatest gift I gave my family was forcing them to discover their own capabilities rather than remaining dependent on mine. The sunrise over the Pacific brings colors that change constantly as light angles shift across the endless horizon, creating beauty that exists independently of human effort, while inspiring appreciation for natural forces that operate beyond manipulation or control. Today marks 6 months since I chose personal boundaries over family manipulation, and the life I've built reflects the kind of growth that becomes possible when resources are invested in authentic development rather than constantly managing other people's emergencies and poor choices. The morning light illuminates possibilities that extend far beyond family drama into a future built on genuine independence, healthy relationships, and the kind of financial security that provides options rather than constant anxiety about other people's needs and expectations. What family situation have you had to set boundaries with that was difficult but ultimately necessary for your well-being? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about personal growth and family dynamics. Share this with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of setting healthy financial boundaries. And remember that choosing yourself isn't selfish when it allows everyone to grow into their authentic potential. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it inspires you to create the kind of life that reflects your values rather than other people's expectations. Until next time, remember that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, rather than financial obligation, and genuine love supports your growth rather than exploiting your success.